She peeped at the corner. Mu Lan had very good eyes. She could see well in the dark. So she got frightened by the scene she just saw. In the dark, two male students were straddling a female student. The girl was desperately struggling to get free, but no matter how she tried, she couldn't fight back with those guys alone. Immediately she turned on the torch from her cell phone and the place filled with white light. The male students got startled by the sudden light. They looked at the culprit who did this. The culprit, Mu Lan, was too stunned to do anything. She saw one guy was trying to open the girl's leg and the other one grabbing her hand. Mu Lan recognized the guy who was trying to open her leg. It was an Italian womanizer boy. Mu Lan never liked him in the begin with. But what shocked her most was the victim girl. Her mouth was tightened with muffler. Her dress was disordered clothes. Her skirt was almost torn apart. She was crying her heart out and her eyes were red and teary. Her blonde hair was messy. Her green eyes were looking at Mu Lan, silently asking for help. That girl was no one other than Xiang. Just yesterday Mu Lan warned her and tonight she was at this state. Those group was fast to act. But Mu Lan didn't have the time to think of that. Before she could think of anything, the Italian guy acted first. He pawed Mu Lan's cell phone. It crashed on the floor. What he didn't know that this particular mobile set was specially ordered for Mu Lan. Even it was thrown away in the water, nothing would happen to it. For that reason, the cell phone did crash, but it wasn't harmed and the light was still on. Excited, the Italian student pushed Mu Lan back. His eyes were red in fury because he was interrupted. Mu Lan was still weak and she wasn't a good athlete either. As a result, she couldn't control her balance and about to fall. Hugo Muller was restless after his encounter with Mu Lan. He couldn't accept the fact that he was caught red-handed. He really underestimated her. As expected of Lady Boss. He thought. He, who had zero experience with romance and was always busy guns and fighting, never talked to girl informally except his mother. This 25-years-old gentleman still had long way to go. And now he had to call Mu Lan, his lady boss, just Lan. When he never called any woman by their name, how could he call her by her name? It was a matter of his principle and also he didn't have any death wish. If anyway his boss could able to hear such ill behavior, he would fry him alive. Hugo had seen how protective his boss was towards Lady Boss. Hugo took bath in his dorm. Then came out. His two roommates still didn't come to the room. So he turned off the light and went to the bed. In the bed, he was still of all sort of things. He was thinking of a way to tell his boss about Mu Lan's plan. However, he never imagined that she could get Mu Liang's permission that easily. He helplessly sighed. Only young miss could manage boss like that. He thought. Soon, he drifted to sleep. Ring. Ring, dot. Hugo's peaceful dream broke because of the sudden call. He didn't get irritated. It was normal for him for his work as a bodyguard. He looked at the screen and saw mischievous Feng. Actually, it was Mu Feng. Hugo's second boss, who was 2 years older than him, used to torment him with ladies. Mu Feng was famous among the young and the older women. To get closer to him, they used all type of techniques. One of the techniques was approaching Hugo. Hugo, the aloof guy, never liked those heavy makeup, big breasts women. He would shiver in disgust. Once, Mu Feng left him in a room with all these women. It took Hugo months to forget that nightmare. Mu Feng said then that it was for Hugo to practice being with women. Later he flashed a mischievous smile. From that day, Hugo named Mu Feng Mischievous Feng. One day, Mu Liang hired him and saved him from that hateful job. Hugo was always indebted to him for that. The reason he was hired because of Mu Lan. That's why Hugo was very thankful to her as well. Hugo answered the call. When they were talking on the phone, Hugo's other cell phone rang. It was a special set exclusively for Mu Liang to contact him. Mu Liang would contact him if there was any need. That's why his exclusive set had a connection with Mu Feng's exclusive set. Mu Feng was ordered to check Mu Liang's every move too. As both of their exclusive set chimed, they looked at the cell phone. Mu Liang texted Hugo. Danger quick. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 106. Chapter 106, A Simple Message. It was a simple message Mu Liang wrote as fast as possible. However, it was very effective. No sooner had Hugo Muller and Mu Feng read the text, immediately they cut off the call and speedily headed towards the girls' dorm. Mu Feng was still in the Mu mansion, so he was in disadvantage. He was in his private bar when he got the message. Reading the text, he jumped out of the chair and in a lightning speed, he left the mansion. He took his black sports car and drove as fast as he could. He tried not to break the traffic rules. When it came to distance, Hugo was the closest. He ran in the fastest speed without a sound. In 1 minute 20 seconds he reached the girls' dormitory. He straightly went to second room. In Mu Liang's door there still the key was hanging. He realized that Mu Liang was not in the room. He checked the corridor which was full of light. He frowned. Just then something clicked in his mind. The 6-storied dorm was full of light except the 4th floor. As soon as he remembered it, he climbed the stairs, escaping 4 steps at a time. Just he was about to reach the 4th floor, he saw a body was falling. Recognizing the owner of the body, his eyes flew open. Before the body hit the stairs, he caught her with his both hands and drew her closer to his body so that she could not get hurt. The body in his arm was shaking and it was cold too. Worriedly, Hugo said, "Miss, Mu Liang stopped him saying, save the girl." Her voice was also shaking. Hugo looked up from where she fell. Mu Liang's cell phone torch was still turned on. Hugo saw a blonde guy was bending down to take the cell phone. Hugo softly sat Mu Liang on the stairs and climbed up. Before that Italian boy could touch the cell phone, a kick flew towards him and threw him on the other side. That guy's head touched the wall with a thud sound and lost consciousness immediately. Then Hugo looked at the victim and the other guy. Just with a first glance, he recognized the girl. His body shook violently. In the world of business, in every ball, anniversary and birthday parties, business partners and their family members were invited. As a result, almost everyone would know each other. Staying with Mu family for 7 years, Hugo also knew lots of businessmen, ministers, influential people, heirs and heiress. Ying was one of them. Not to mention, she was the only heiress and doting sister of Qi Corporation's president Yang. If he had a slightest idea what just happened to his beloved sister, Hugo didn't think of anything else. Actually, he was worried about something else. Hugo grabbed the other guy's hair in one hand, pulled that guy to make him stay away from the girl and then threw him beside his friend. But that guy still had consciousness and he tried to flee. However, Hugo caught him with his one hand and landed a blow just on his neck. Getting such a heavy blow, that guy fainted. At that time, Mu Liang also climbed up and went straight to Ying. Ying, who was almost got molested, was shivering tremendously and crying soundlessly. Even when she was crying, her voice was shaking. She was shocked and ashamed. Mu Liang sat beside her and tried to make her sit up. Ying looked at Mu Liang and couldn't recognize her. She tried to avoid her with her shaky hands. Her eyes was still filled with horror. Looking at her reaction, Mu Liang felt upset and sympathy. Just the way Mu Liang talked to her, Mu Liang softly, gently, with full of love said to Ying, "It's okay now. The bad guys were taken care of. I'm here to help you. There is nothing to fear now. It's all right. Everything is all right." She repeated the same lines over and over again. Very slowly, Qiang started to relax. She was whimpering. She couldn't breathe well. She started to sob. Mu Lan steadily stretched her hands and watching no distrusting sign from Qiang, she slowly hugged her and repeatedly said, "It's okay now. Everything will be all right." Then Mu Lan stroked her back gently, friendly. Qiang didn't come down a bit. Rather than calming down, she started to cry more and more. Mu Lan didn't know what to do. All she could do was to hug her and give her comfort. After a long time, Qiang stopped moving and her weight on Mu Lan gradually rose. Seeing this sudden difference, Mu Lan's body froze. She looked down and saw that Qiang fainted. With troubling gaze, she looked for Hugo. He was just standing behind her, waiting. She said, "Hugo, where are the guys?" "They were taken care of. So don't worry, young miss," he replied. At a time like this, Mu Lan didn't say anything about the way he addressed her. She further said, "Help me to take her to my room." Hugo didn't move. He hesitated. Clearly, he was unwilling to carry Qiang. There were some people whom he shouldn't touch to stay away from trouble. She was one of them. Mu Lan was too busy to care for Hugo's reaction. She almost hissed, "Hurry up." Reluctantly, he held Qiang in his arms. Asking for forgiveness for multiple times to who knew whom, he carried her to Mu Lan's room. Mu Lan opened the door for them and turning on the light, she asked Hugo to put Qiang to her bed. Hugo did as she said. Then she requested Hugo to cook some porridge because didn't know how to cook. Hugo cooked some vegetables from fridge and went to kitchen. Mu Lan told him not to come back unless she said so and closed the door. Then she took out a white maxi and a short towel. She also took a huge bowl and poured cold water. After that, she took of Qiang's clothes and torn brassiere. Soaked the towel in the cold water. Later, she wiped her whole body very carefully. Her body was injured and there were also blood. After wiping her body, Mu Lan took a clean towel dry her body. Then she took an antiseptic cream and put it on the injuries, later bandaged them. After that she dressed her up. Mu Lan plopped down on the sofa, feeling tired. Just then her stomach growled. Perfect timing, she thought. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 107. Chapter 107, there's something I need to know? When Hugo went to the kitchen, the first thing he did was to call Mu Feng, who was still driving the car and praying for Mu Lan. On the first ring, Mu Feng answered the call, "Hugo." His voice was urgent. "Nothing happened to young Mississippi. The matter has been taken care of," Hugo told him in a monotonous voice. Mu Feng signed in relief. "Oh, thank God," he said and lowered the speed of the car. Then he asked, "So why did she give such a message? The victim is someone else. Young Miss just happened to see that." Hugo stopped there. Mu Feng nodded and sounded happy. "Yes, that's my sister-in-law. She is very righteous." He felt very proud. Later he asked, "Then do I have to come?" "You have to." Hugo tried to calm his voice. Hearing the urgency, Mu Feng felt a bit weird. He said shortly, "Okay, give me 15 more minutes." After saying that, he hung up. 15 minutes later, Mu Lan entered the kitchen and the delicious smell tickled her nostrils. She went beside Hugo and saw that he was cooking vegetable soup and porridge. Mu Lan's dim eyes got some light. She said, "If I knew that you were such a good cook, I would never have had my breakfast with instant noodles. If you want, young miss, Alice can cook for you. She is a good cook," Hugo said. "I learnt it from her." Mu Lan was surprised. "Really? Then I'll try asking her to teach me to cook too." Hugo served the food and shook his head saying, "I don't think boss will allow that." Mu Lan could realize that too. She silently finished the soup. The coldness she felt inside became warm. Her slight shivering stopped and slowly she became normal. Just when Mu Lan finished eating, someone knocked the door. Knock, knock. Knock. Knock, knock, knock. Mu Lan frowned to hear such a weird knock. She felt it was more like a code. So she looked at Hugo if he knew anything. Hugo nodded at her, then he got up from his seat and went to the door. He slowly opened the door and a similar face popped up. "Mu Feng!" Mu Lan exclaimed in a low voice. Before Mu Feng could enter the room, Hugo stopped him. Curiously, both Mu Lan and Mu Feng looked at him. Hugo gulped. Then he reached out to grab Mu Feng's one shoulder and whispered, "Don't do anything reckless." Mu Feng, who was clueless, frowned. He kept looking at Hugo but Hugo didn't say anything. Suddenly, Mu Feng's face started to change color. Mu Feng looked at the bed where Qiang was sleeping. Seeing her face, his breathing became irregular. His whole body started to shiver. His face became pale. Hugo didn't know what to say. He let go Mu Feng's shoulder. Mu Feng, like a robot, walked towards the sleeping beauty. Mu Feng thought he was going crazy. When he reached the bed, he sat beside her. He kept looking at her. Qiang's face was drained and pale. Her eyes and nose were red. Her lips were cut. Her hands were patched. Most likely, she was injured. She had a fever. Slowly Mu Feng's hand reached out to touch her hand. His hand was trembling. He gently touched her hand and took it closer to his face and made her palm touch his cheek. His body shook tremendously. Tears formed in his eyes as he kept looking at her without blinking even for once. Hugo couldn't stand there anymore. He walked to the kitchen. Mu Lan was dumbfounded. She never saw Mu Feng, a jolly-minded person who loved to joke around, could have such an expression. It was like he was completely a different person. She looked at Hugo, whose face was completely grim. He went to the kitchen and Mu Lan followed him. When they were alone, Mu Lan asked, "Is there something I need to know? Why didn't Mu Feng never mention his girlfriend?" Hugo sighed and told her, "Young miss, don't ask me that. If you want to ask someone, ask Mu Feng. I think he could tell you since he is very close to you." Mu Lan just nodded. They gave Mu Feng some time alone. They didn't want to interfere. Hugo was standing in the kitchen and he looked out of the window. Mu Lan kept pacing in the painting room. Several minutes later, Mu Feng entered the painting room. The first one who encountered him was Mu Lan. Mu Feng walked towards her. "Sorry, Sister Lan, I didn't greet you earlier. Are you all right?" Mu Feng smiled at her. Mu Lan looked at him and felt a pain in her heart. She patted his shoulder and said, "It's fine. Hugo came in time or I had to stay in the hospital for a couple of weeks." Mu Feng frowned. "What do you mean?" Mu Lan told him the whole story and Mu Feng kept listening without interfering. When Mu Lan ended the story, she said, "Something is itching me for a while." "What is it?" Mu Feng asked. "How did you two come to my room?" "There is a guard in the first floor." Mu Lan looked at Hugo and Mu Feng. The men exchanged looks and then Hugo said, "We climbed the pipe." That was understandable. She thought. For some time, Mu Lan thought something and then said, "Then what about the two harassers?" Mu Feng put his right hand under the chin and replied, "There are two options. First, they also climbed up. Second, someone or some girls helped them. It is impossible to bribe the guard. He knows his limits. Moreover, she is the heiress of Qi Corporation and the guard knows it very well." Mu Lan was amazed. So she is from an influential family. Mu Feng asked her, Sister Lan, do you think of anyone who could do such a thing? Mu Lan remembered the group of 4 girls. She told Mu Feng about her first day of meeting Qiang. I'm not sure if they are the ones who did this, but I did warn her. She is very pure and never experienced such a thing before. Mu Feng smiled at Mu Lan and said, You are right. She is pure and innocent. For the first time, Mu Lan saw his eyes very tender. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 108. Chapter 108, IT is partly your fault. Mu Lan noticed that Mu Feng called her Sister Lan tonight, not Sister Lan Lan. She remembered his face that time when he was looking at Qiang. She wanted to ask, but understanding that it wasn't the right time, she stopped herself. Mu Feng smiled at her and said, Sister Lan, we won't disturb you anymore. Please take care of her today and don't let anyone know about the incident. I'll take care of the whole situation. Trust in me. As Mu Lan nodded, Mu Feng and Hugo left her room. As soon as they were out of the room, Mu Feng's face changed dramatically. Seeing his expression, chills ran down through Hugo's spine. Mu Feng said, She caught a fever. Hugo replied, We gave her a medicine. She needs a doctor. Mu Feng continued. Hugo took out his cell phone and said, I'll call Dr. Lu Feng now to come tomorrow. Mu Feng nodded and said further, Big brother. I notified boss earlier. Hugo replied, He's on the way. Mu Feng took out his cell phone too and said, You should have said that earlier. Then he dialed his elder brother's number. You didn't ask. Hugo said. Did you touch her? Suddenly Mu Feng asked. Hugo gulped. Young miss was too weak to carry her, so I helped her. Mu Feng gave him a look. Hugo hurriedly said, If I weren't there to help, what do you think would happen? Mu Feng hissed, I would kill you. Hugo. Just then, Mu Liang answered the call, Feng. Mu Feng tried to report about the situation saying, Big brother, It is partly your fault. Mu Liang's voice was as sharp as a new knife. Mu Feng tried to explain, but If you protected your girlfriend from the very beginning, they wouldn't able to throw Lan from the 4th floor. Mu Liang interfered again. So all you worry is for Sister Lan. Mu Feng thought helplessly. He said, To keep her away from me is the best way to protect her. Mu Liang cruelly said, Yes, it is a perfect plan, and still she was almost raped. Mu Feng's body shook violently. He couldn't protest because his brother was right. Mu Liang didn't stop. I put my wife closer to me so I can protect her. What do you think will happen if she is away from me? If you kept your girlfriend closer to you, do you think other would dare to touch your woman? If you are worried about gangsters, you know the tricks. You could protect her. But you didn't. You just threw her away, not even considering how she felt. The girl you love the most, you hurt her the most. I'm very disappointed in you. Clean up your mess. Saying what he wanted to say, Mu Liang hung up. Mu Feng didn't say anything for a while. Hugo didn't dare to say anything. He knew something was coming. If Mu Liang was a ruthless demon, Mu Feng was a terrifying snake. They treated their friends the best and treated their enemy the worst. Both of the Mu brothers were very protective when it came to their women. If someone dared to hurt their beloved, they would destroy the world. Hugo thought about the group of 4 girls and the 2 harassers. He thought of some types of tortures, since it had been a while Mu Feng become bloody. After a while, Mu Feng asked, Where are the bodies? He already made them dead. Hugo had no doubt about the 2 harassers' future. He replied, They are in the garden. Let's interrogate them. Something flashed in Mu Feng's eyes. Hugo thought, They are so doomed. Then he asked, And what about the group? We need to be sure whether they were involved or not. Saying that, Feng started walking. Mu Lan was dozing in the sofa. Sometimes she would check Qi Ying's temperature. Then she would drink some water. Just when she tried to close her eyes, she would get vision of what she encountered. Her whole body would shook remembering it. She couldn't fell asleep. In the midnight, she heard a knock. Knock, knock. Knock. Knock, knock, knock. Mu Lan recognized the knock. Thinking it was Mu Feng, she opened the door. Before she could see anything, someone hugged her tightly. Mu Lan's first reaction, she was dumbfounded. Then she tried to struggle. But he didn't budge. Just when she wanted to scream, she smelled a familiar fragrance. The moment she realized who it was, she became astonished, then extremely happy. Today, she was extremely scared. She didn't show it in front of Hugo and Mu Feng. But when she became alone, she couldn't sleep and she was restless. However, now that she was in the embrace of him, she felt all her feeling bubbled up and she vent them all. Mu Lan hugged him tightly and let her tears flow. Her body was trembling. His warm body made her relaxes and she smelt his manly odor. When Mu Liang saw her pale face, his heart ached. He didn't stop himself from hugging her tightly. Her whole body froze, then struggled and then hugged him tightly. He realized that she recognized him. Her whole body quivered and his shirt started to get wet. The moment he realized that she was crying, he felt that someone stabbed him in the heart. He hugged her more tightly. With one hand he slowly closed the door and locked it. With the other hand, he stroked her body, comforted him. Like usual, with gentle voice he whispered in her ear, "It's okay. I'm here. Nothing will happen to you." He repeatedly kissed her ear softly as he said those lines again and again. Softly, he carried her on the sofa. As he sat down, he put her on the lap. Her face was buried in his chest, still shedding tears. She kept hugging him tightly, however, her body wasn't shivering anymore. All Mu Liang could do was comforting her by hugging her and saying honey words. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 109. Chapter 109, I'll become experienced. Mu Lan, who was still sobbing, asked the man who was comforting her, "Did you also climb the second floor?" "What?" Mu Liang, who was stroking her back, froze. He looked down to see her beautiful face. He didn't reply her. Instead, he asked in a deep voice, "Who told you that?" Mu Lan got her answer by his question. Again, she got a proof how much this man had done for her. She hugged him tighter and replied, "Our guard isn't easy to bully." Mu Liang gave a small laugh. He asked, "So it was Mu Feng?" He liked the touch of her body. The way she was hugging him, he liked it a lot. Mu Lan listened to his heartbeats and slowly her tears stopped falling. She was also feeling light-hearted. Mu Liang cupped her face with his both hands and wiped out her tears with his thumb. Her eyes and nose were red. Those transparent eyes were wet and puffy. A moment ago who had a pale face, now she was slightly blushing. Mu Liang found it very cute. But his observant eyes didn't miss a single details. He said, "You got thinner in 2 days. What did you eat these days?" Mu Lan in his arms shrank. After few seconds, she replied, "Instant noodles." Her reply was a huge bomb. The temperature of the room instantly dropped. Understanding the situation, Mu Lan hurriedly said, "Tonight, Hugo cooked vegetable soup and porridge. It was delicious." Mu Liang's mouth twisted. After eating Cook Eve's dishes and top French cuisines, how could she tell that Hugo's dish was delicious, that he wasn't sure? He said, "I'll arrange someone." "No need." Mu Lan interrupted. "You are suffering." Mu Liang gritted his teeth. Let me learn the reality of the world. Mu Lan said. Reality? Haven't you suffered enough? He wanted to ask, but he didn't. He just hugged her tighter as he asked, how can I let you suffer alone when I am enjoying the luxury? His voice was full of pain. His voice pierced an arrow through her heart. She rubbed her face on the crook of his neck and said, I'll become experienced. You don't have to be experienced in this field. If you want to be experienced that much, Mu Liang leaned closer to her ear and continued in a deep husky voice, get experienced in bed field. Saying that, he lightly bit her ear. Shiver went down her spine. It wasn't a chilling but hot shiver. It was very unexpected. They were still talking about an important issue. Her ears were the most sensitive spot. She backed down. But where could she go when she was in his embrace? Mu Liang didn't let her go. You want to become experienced? I'll make you experienced. He bit and nibbled her ear. Sometimes he licked. His hands started to roam around her body. Suddenly the atmosphere became very intimated. Mu Lan almost forgot where she was. His mouth and hands were very experienced. Her hands were around his body, so she couldn't push him away. She was totally in his trap. When she got licked in the ear, her body writhed as an unknown feeling rushed in her every cell. Her whole body became hot. Her breaths became irregular. She couldn't breathe well and subconsciously, she opened her mouth to take oxygen. She couldn't surpass the voice which tried to come from her deep inside. HNN. Mu Lan softly moaned and squirmed against his manly body. She grasped his shirt when Mu Liang's lips started to went down. His hot lips touched her delicate neck. His left hand started to go under her shirt and right hand started to unbutton the shirt. Mu Liang's breath also became irregular and heartbeat crazily. It was almost 2 days that he last smelled her vanilla scent. He bit, licked and kissed all over her neck. Liang. She wanted to stop him, but the flame inside her body ignited. Her body wanted his touch, and that frightened her. While kissing, Mu Liang said, what is it? He left some new hickeys. Liang, ha, ssto, p, hnk. Mu Lan, who was nearly drowning in passion, tried to stop him with all she left. The feeling was called rationality. Mu Liang unbuttoned her shirt and took it half off of her shoulder. He looked down at the body underneath and kissed her cleavage. He said, I don't want to. Saying that, his right hand touched her left breast. Ah! A surprise moan came out of her mouth. She was straddling as her legs were both sides of Mu Liang. She was at the disadvantaged position. She felt something was poking her, under the skirt. Mu Liang felt that too. He felt his certain part touch something that he wanted for a lifetime. Subconsciously, he groped her butt and ground her against him. Both of them groaned in certain pleasure. Mu Lan's shirt left her body. Her eyes were blurry. She had no conscience left. Her strength also left her body. All she could do was clutching his shirt and moan. Mu Lan's almost naked body was against Mu Liang. His eyes were on fire. He left hickeys down her breasts as his hands were busy trying to unlock her bra. With moan, Mu Lan almost screamed his name, Liang, ha. When he heard her calling his name so passionately, rationality rushed in his mind. He halted for a second. Then bit her left ear and said, promise me something. Mu Lan couldn't utter a word as she moaned lightly. Never eat instant noodles. Mu Liang said in a husky voice. Ha, Mu Lan in a sense to understand what he was saying. She was still in daze. Mu Liang continued as he kept caressing her naked waist, if you are hungry, go to cafeteria. This time Mu Lan nodded slightly. Mu Liang took her shirt and wrapped it around her body. He calmed his desire. Both of them were feeling very hot and their body was sweaty. However, Mu Liang didn't care. He hugged her closer and laid down on the sofa. As the storm of passion slowly subsided, he kept stroking her head until she fell asleep. Slowly he calmed himself and drifted into the dreamland. In a flash everything started and in a flash everything ended just like that. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 110. Chapter 110, Drifted to the Past Part 1. While Mu Liang and Mu Lan were all lovey-dovey, Feng was driving his car while Hugo was next to him sleeping, and in the back seat were two harassers, still unconscious. His face was solemn, and whenever his eyes caught a glimpse of those harassers, his face would become vicious. If Mu Lan and Xiang would see his face right now, their souls would leave the earth. He was afraid. He was really afraid that something would happen to her. Something very terrifying. Wasn't that the reason he left her in the first place? His mind went to 4 years ago. 4 years ago. Feng was an undergraduate senior. He was very popular among the women. He was called Prince Charming. He had two best friends and always would hang around with them. They were the nerd Zhu Long and beauty Louise Fontaine. They both were talented in their own way. Feng was pretty generous, and it was a very reason for men and women to respect him. Not to mention, he always attended on the charity programs. It made his circle of friends larger. However, how many of them could be called true friends? They were very few in number. Feng was a sly fox since he was born. He could differentiate between good friends and bad friends. Those who were good friends, Feng would seldom hang around with them in public. But they were always welcome in Mu Mansion. One of them was Qi Yang. Qi Yang was the sole heir of Qi Corporation. He was an intelligent fellow with a good heart. But when it came to scheme in business, he would twist a false to reality. When he chose to do something, he would always win. Since he was in middle school, he joined in Qi Corporation to help his father. His Chinese father and Spanish mother were very proud of him, and so his relatives. Qi family was very harmonious. Once, for the competition on an international model city program, both Qi Corporation and Mu Corporation participated. When Qi Corporation had 99.99% chance to win, the table turned and Mu Corporation won the project. That time Qi Yang, who was in charge of this project, was only 23 and Mu Liang was 24. Mu Liang respected that hard-working, intelligent student. He once told Feng, if Mu Corporation didn't exist, then Qi Yang would become the emperor of the business world. Feng believed it. He also believed that Qi Yang was a good man. That was the first time Mu brothers and Qi Yang met, and slowly their friendship became deeper. Both Feng and Qi Yang were in same university and they were in same department, business administration. However, Feng was in administration studies and Qi Yang was in management studies. There weren't college mates, but they were definitely friends. The most powerful two business company could become foes, but Qi Yang was very clever not to do so. He knew the moment those two companies would become foes, Qi Corporation would have a chance of huge loss. So why do that? Both companies were in peace and harmony. The womanizer Feng was always in jolly mood. He didn't had to care about business or anything. He was managing the underworld on behalf of his brother. He was very good at handling his jobs, so he never took it seriously. Who knew, one day in a single second, his story would change dramatically. Qi Yang had birthday and he invited very close friends in his mansion to celebrate. His parents were away and only siblings, maids and butlers were there to welcome the guest. Drinking 2 glasses of wine, Feng was feeling stuffy. He went to the garden to take some fresh air. Soon his mind became fresh. He was a nature lover by birth. He looked at the sky. It was a full moon. The moon was specially bright and beautiful. The sky was clean and stars were also shining brightly. While he was admiring the beauty of the moon, he almost forgot where he was and what time it was. Suddenly he heard a rustling sound. Startled, Mu Feng looked at the left. There, he saw a girl was sitting next to the garden pond and was floating the candle lights. She lightened 24 candle light for the happiness for her elder brother. Dumbstruck Mu Feng couldn't take his eyes off of her. Above her, the moon was blessing her silver light, and beneath her, candle lights were blessing her golden light. At night, such paradoxical colors illuminated her beauty. Her developed body had golden hue. Her green eyes were sparkling. She had a delicate nose. Her pink lips were alluring. Her golden hair was brightened by the moon's silver light. She looked like an angel came from heaven. Mu Feng didn't know how long he was standing there and looking at her. He even forgot to breathe. When he realized, he was already close to the pond. He had no idea how he came here. All he knew, there was an angel near the pond. They seemed to realize that someone was looking at her. She was startled as she looked at her right side and saw a handsome man silently looking at her. Handsome or not, to any woman, it would feel creepy. That girl was no different. She jumped up and tried to step back. However, she was wearing a gown and high heel, and there were pebbles near the pond. Trying to be quick, she lost her balance. She almost fell in the pond without any sound, and the knight in shining armor saved her by grabbing her hand and taking her in his arms. Accidentally, their lips touched. Thus, the handsome man called Mu Feng and the angel descended from heaven called Qiang fell in love in the most classic romantic movie way by their first kiss. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 111. Chapter 111, Drifted to the Past Part 2. Actually, they didn't fall in love. It was true that Qiang's beauty was unique and Mu Feng was very handsome. However, Mu Feng was used to seeing beauties. All he was feeling that night was admiration. Qiang, who was a beauty by born, was used to with flattery and getting proposal. So she wasn't flattered by him either. But, of course, she was grateful to him for saving her. However, the unexpected encounter accidentally gave them a surprise. They lost their first kisses to each other. Two of them never met before. They were strangers and they kissed each other. Mu Feng, the womanizer, though he was a flirt, he always kept a decent distance. It made him even more desirable. And he got startled by the sudden soft touch on his lips. His face immediately turned red. Qiang, who was never close to any man other than her father and brother, was clueless at first. When she was her savior's red face, just then she realized what just happened. Subconsciously, she shoved Mu Feng. He also backed away. Hurriedly he said, "I'm sorry. That wasn't my intention." Qiang started blushing too. She didn't dare to look at Mu Feng's face anymore. She nodded lightly and said in a low voice, "I know. Thank you for saving me." Without letting Mu Feng say another word, she quickly went away. That night, both of them kept touching their lips and kept remembering the warm soft touch they felt. Next day, Mu Feng woke up with panda eyes. His personal maid was so shocked that she couldn't utter a single word. In the Mu family, Mu Feng was called Beauty. He was specially aware of his skin and health. Every maid and butler kept looking at him in a weird way. He didn't realize what was that all about, until he looked at his own reflection in the mirror and screamed in horror. That day, he had to put on makeup before he left for school. Since then, Qiang and Mu Feng would meet each other in various occasions like business parties, Christmas parties, New Year parties, charity balls, wedding receptions and birthday parties. Little by little, Mu Feng started to know her better. She wasn't a spoiled princess like the rumors said. She wasn't proud heiress either. She was a shy middle school student and always got brilliant marks. She was very attentive to her family. She liked elder people and had her own hermitage for old people who had no family where they could live, eat, and get proper medical treatment. She also loved nature and was very good at planting. She loved flowers and had her own garden. Mu Feng started to like gardening too. She was always busy with her own world, and for her shy personality she hardly met people. For some reason, Mu Feng often started to visit Qi Mansion. He also didn't know why. Qi was very skilled at chess. Whenever Mu Feng went there, they would play 1 or 2 rounds. Sometimes Mu Feng would win, sometimes Qi. There was another thing she was good at, it was cooking. Mu Feng would never miss a single chance to miss her cooked food. He got so obsessed that he started miss out Cook Eve's food. That old woman started to tease him whenever she could sing. They were having a new chef in near future. As Mu Feng's attention started to move somewhere else, so he less and less paid visit to his circles. He also stopped looking at other girls. This rapid change of his didn't miss from his elder brother's eyes. Mu Liang started to investigate and soon found some interesting news. He didn't say anything to his second brother and only smiled. Qi was shy and lacked of friends. She always wanted friends she could hang out with. She dreamed to have a group of friends with whom she could visit many places and have fun. But the girls only talked to her to use her as she was an heiress. For almost same reason, and she was also a beauty, so boys would approach her all the time. Never she had a real friend with selfless intention, and she got hurt countless times. So not to make her family worried, she shut her out. Qi had a good heart, and for that she was always pampered by her family. Her brother was a closest ally. She learned many things from her brother, Qi Yang. They were lovable siblings and true friends. Qi Yang would give her anything she wanted. Qi also wholeheartedly loved her brother. She used to think that there was only one friend in her life, and that was her brother, until one day she met a guy who accidentally kissed her lips. After that incident for 3 days, she couldn't sleep well. She would be absent-minded and inattentive in the class. Thus, she became second in the class. Everyone in her family and the class were surprised by her sudden demotion. However, her family didn't pressure her, rather they even eased her and said that it was normal. Qi felt something different. She started to think she got herself another enemy who wanted to ruin her life. Just the way she thought, she tried to forget what happened that night and concentrate on her daily chores. However, no matter how many times she tried to avoid Mu Feng, she kept facing him in almost every program she attended. She started to become suspicious. Is he stalking me? As she thought that, she ordered the head butler of the Qi family to investigate her. Mu Feng's best friend Zhu Long had already become Mu Liang's personal assistant. He was the first to get to know that Qi was investigating Mu Feng. Feeling stunned, he informed his boss. Mu Liang smiled inside after hearing that and ordered Zhu Long to provide her every last bit of Mu Feng's information. Qi found out that Mu Feng was the second heir of Mu family. He was well known for his kindness. He was a womanizer but always kept decent distance with women. He was a good student with good grades. He was the administrator of the Mu Corporation. He was very athletic and loved to travel. What shocked her the most that Mu Feng was the king of the European underworld. Qi couldn't understand how could the king of the underworld be so kind. Still a shiver ran down her spine. When she couldn't get through anything at all, she asked her brother. Her brother, Qi Yang, was astonished by her interest in Mu Feng. He knew that Mu Feng was anything but a bad guy, so he told her everything of what he knew and said that he would invite him over if she was interested. Finding Mu Feng's personality very interesting, Qi agreed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 112. Chapter 112, Drifted to the Past Part 3. As the Qi siblings planned, Mu Feng started to visit them frequently. Qi observed his every move. Mu Feng understood that very well. Whenever he caught her red-handed looking at him, she would reply, "I'm learning." Yes, she was learning. That was true. She was learning about him. Xiang began to understand Mu Feng little by little. She realized that Mu Feng had no interest in his beauty. He admired her. Mu Feng had soft heart for children. Whenever he would see a bunch of kids playing, he would join them. Once, he was a famous womanizer, a mature playboy. In second, he was childish. He was talented and hardworking. He liked nature, and when he found out about Qi Ying's gardening hobby, he invited her to Mu Mansion to create a plan of making a flower garden. She was the first female outsider to visit that place. If Mu Feng couldn't stop in time, Cook Eve and butler Leo would arrange a romantic candlelight dinner. When Xiang realized fully that Mu Feng had no interest in her outer appearance, she slowly let her guard down. She started to be more friendly and open towards Mu Feng. They would play chess together, they would talk about flowers and plants. Whenever he would come, she would cook for him. Cooking was her specialty, and Mu Feng loved to have dinner with her. She always wanted a true friend, and she actually found one. Day by day, they became close and would go often out for a walk. They would go to park, museum, amusement park, library, and they would talk about many things. They would talk about art, life, nature, human beings, imagination, and so on. Xiang and Mu Feng, they both maintained healthy diet, so their time management and health management were accurate. They had many things in common, so they got along well too. When the Qi family found out that their little princess, who was shy around outsiders, started to fall in love, they didn't say anything and only kept looking at them. Because they knew that their little princess didn't realize her own feelings. However, in the sight of Mu Feng, it was exact opposite. Whenever Mu Liang, Mu Feng, Qi Yang and Zhu Long were together, Qi Yang and Zhu Long would tease Mu Feng till he would blush. Mu Liang from the side would only smile a little and wouldn't say another word. Mu Feng's these two friends would keep pressing him about the fact of confessing. He couldn't answer them at all. Finally, the confession day had arrived. It was New Year Eve. Mu Feng took Qiang to Seine River cruise. On the boat, after a romantic candlelight dinner, in the exact 12 o'clock, Mu Feng confessed his love and they shared their second kiss, and it was a very passionate kiss under the sky of fireworks. It was an important and the most special memory in their lifetime. They could never forget that night. From then on, they would walk hand in hand, would have lunch together or dinner. Qi family didn't say anything, but they would welcome Mu Feng in their mansion wholeheartedly. Most of the time, they would stay on the garden. It could be Mu Mansion or Qi Mansion. Xiang would sit under a huge tree and would sew handkerchief or a dress. Mu Feng would lay on the grass, reading the documents while his head would be on her lap. Xiang was a shy person and she loved Mu Feng with all her heart. Mu Feng knew it very well. So, he never forced her for kiss or anything. They would be busy with their own things while enjoying each other's present. Their love was platonic and pure. Both of their families didn't rush them since the couples target the reaching their own goals. Xiang was still in middle school and Mu Feng was a graduate. As they weren't physically involved, Qi family was at ease. They understood that though Mu Feng was called womanizer, he was truly gentleman, as expected of Mu Liang's brother. Everything was in peace and harmony until one day, Xiang got abducted. Everyone was very worried and started searching for her. The more time went by, the more they became frightened. After 2 hours, Mu Feng found out the culprits. The criminal hid their tracks well. But his was nothing, compared to Mu Liang's intelligence force. They were the new gang who tried to revolt against the underworld king, Mu Feng. That gang was powerful on their own and wanted to take the throne of the underworld. They wanted to prove that if the king wasn't able to protect his woman, he could protect his kingdom either. Mu Feng almost lost his cool. He dared not to imagine what was happening to Qiang. Understanding the situation, Mu Liang helped his brother for the first time. In an hour, they rescued Qiang. It was a bloodbath war. The enemy didn't get a chance to fight. Everyone died in a ruthless way. Mu Liang had his first-time experience seeing his second brother's devilish appearance. When Mu Feng found Qiang, she was unconscious. Her school dress was almost torn apart. She was bound tightly with ropes. Knowing that she wasn't raped, Mu Feng almost cried out in relief. But the enemy did something horrible to her. The enemy injected her drugs and poison which caused her nearly killed her. Her whole body was internally burning and she screamed in pain. Mu Feng was so frightened that he hugged her tightly as his face was pale. Seeing her condition, not knowing what to do, Mu Feng called Mu Liang's another friend Lu Feng, who was an established doctor. Lu family was a family of doctors over generation. They had their own research facilities and had medicine companies and hospitals all around the Europe and China. Under Lu Feng's instruction, Mu Feng took Qiang to Lu Research Center in helicopter. As soon as they reached there, Lu Feng took Qiang in the emergency room and told Mu Feng to wait outside. That time, when he saw through the glass that Qiang was screaming and crying, his heart was almost torn apart. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 113. Chapter 113, Drifted to the Past Part 4. The doctors on the other side had to work hard to control Qiang. They dared not to inject tranquilizer drug in her body. They just bound her with the bed, took couple syringe of blood and took it to the laboratory. Mu Feng kept looking through the glass. He didn't dare to sit. He didn't dare to blink. He could able to soothe her pain away. An unbearable pain numbed his whole body. He didn't have any strength to think of anything. He didn't know the time and place anymore. Only he could see what was before him. As soon as Qiang heard about the location of his sister, he rushed to Lu Research Center with Mu Liang. Two of them saw Mu Feng, who was lingering with a glass wall. Before they could say anything to him, their eyes went to through the glass. Seeing the suffering of his one and only beloved sister, Qiang felt numbed. He felt someone dragged him in the cold water. He almost lost his stepping and immediately sat on the closest bench. He covered his face with his hand and started to sob and pray. Mu Liang didn't say anything. He just sat in the corner and texted. After he was done, he went Lu Feng. Lu Feng's face was dark. What's the news? Mu Liang could guess the answer. Still he asked. Lu Feng shook his head and answered, not very promising. The drugs could be treated but the poison is rare. I have never seen it before. I have already called my grandpa. He is in plane right now. He took the fastest private plane to reach here. He is a famous researcher. I can only hope he can do something. Mu Liang only nodded. His face was also dark. He asked, how long do you think she can handle it? Lu Feng didn't want to answer first. He was silent for a while and then said, probably 4 to 5 hours. Good thing is, she maintained her healthy diet. Or else, we had to arrange her funeral. Mu Liang shortly said, don't let Mu Feng hear you. Lu Feng gulped. In an hour, Grandpa Lu reached the research center and started to examine the patient. With a bleak face, he tested her blood and gave Lu Feng some instruction. Then he came out of the room and told the 3 men in waiting, good thing that when Feng told me about the patient, I told him to send the research papers of the drugs and the poison. It took me less time to know what she was injected. Grandpa Lu was silent for a moment, then said, the one who did this to her is very vicious. He did it intentionally to hurt her. He wanted her die slowly and painfully. Maybe he wanted to hurt her loved ones so that they could hopelessly see her die and could do nothing. He sighed. Qiang asked, do you have the cure? Grandpa Lu nodded, I have and I instructed Feng to inject the antidote. She needs it 3 doses in a day. The treatment will last for 7 days. We can't drug her with tranquilizer. So till then, she had to suffer. After that, the drug and poison will come out on their own by vomit or other way. She only needs to take bed rest for 2 months. She has a healthy body. You guys don't have to worry anymore. 3 of them sighed in relief. Only then Mu Feng sat on the bench. He didn't know when tears started to fall from his eyes. Grandpa Lu looked at Mu Feng in sympathy. Later, he signed Mu Liang to come with him. When they were alone in his private office, Grandpa Lu opened his mouth. I have seen many of your enemies' treachery. But this time, they crossed the limit. Mu Liang frowned and asked the elder, what do you mean? Grandpa Lu looked at him seriously. Look son, I know since you are little. You are very good friend of my grandson. I know that you don't deliberately cause trouble or make enemy out of nowhere. However, this time, it was a bit unwise to make such enemy without even any preparation. It's not your style. Mu Liang didn't say anything. He just kept listening what the elder had to say. Grandpa Lu continued, it isn't the first time that I have seen this poison, you know. When I was still young, I had a military friend. Now, he became Major General in China. He first allowed me to military for some research. It was for chemical research. I'm not going to tell you everything details. I'll keep it short. One day, I realized that I made a poison and it was nothing to compare with other. Before I realized the sample of the poison got stolen. I was a wholehearted researcher. I could never guess what went wrong. There was a spy and I didn't realize a bit. Then, he sighed and went on, I copied my research papers, destroyed whatever was left and flew away with my life. If it wasn't for your father, I wouldn't able to see my family again in my life. He stopped for a few moments and then continued, the poison I made back then, I never realized that I would find it in the patient's body. Mu Liang's left eye quivered. Astonished, he asked, you mean? Grandpa Lu nodded, this is a military poison, child. Your enemy this time is sure something. I think you all should be careful. Mu Liang took out his phone and immediately made some call. After knowing that everything was under control, he didn't take rest. He called back his youngest brother Mu Chen from Hong Kong and told his intelligence agency to report him within 10 hours about the people who came to France and was still living for the past 2 years. He wasn't sure what triggered to what, but the problem with the gang started 2 years ago. That time, Mu Feng was playing with that gang and didn't end them the way he did with other. Now he had to pay the price. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 114. Chapter 114, Drifted to the Past Part 5. Mu Liang came out of Grandpa Lu's room and headed to the patient's room. He saw that Mu Feng was sitting beside Xiying while holding her hand. Xi Yan was sitting on the other side. With a teary eyes, he was looking at his sleeping sister. Mu Liang said, she's finally sleeping. Xi Yan shook his head and said, Mu Feng made her unconscious. First he didn't want to, but who could endure her scream and loud cry? Mu Liang sighed. Then he said, I need to talk to you guys. It's about the gang. Xi Yan looked at him and asked, do I have to stay here that too? Isn't it confidential? Mu Liang replied, if Xiaoying is going to enter our family, you have to. More importantly, it is also connected to her. Mu Feng this time looked at his brother. Xi Ying's name caught his attention. Mu Liang said, the poison which was injected to Xiaoying's body came from China military force. Looking at the 2 pairs of marble eyes, Mu Liang pinched the place between his eyebrows and went on, I know, it's very mysterious because we never offended China. So I thought maybe it had something to do with Qi family. As Mu Liang looked at his friend, Xi Yang was first stupefied and vigorously shook his head while saying, I have never been to China. My dad goes there for business purpose. Also his parental family lives there. However, if there was any problem regarding Chinese military, father would definitely tell me. I have never heard something went wrong in past few years. I'll call my dad to know about the situation. When Qi Yang left the room, Mu Liang looked at his brother and asked, "How are you holding up?" His gentle voice made Mu Feng all teary. With a hoarse voice, Mu Feng replied, "I should have killed them all. If I took a mercy on even one jerk, I could interrogate him." Mu Liang lifted an eyebrow and said, "You peeled their skins before you killed them. You ask for more now?" Mu Feng said in a cold voice, "If you ever fall in love, you'll know what I'm feeling right now." Mu Liang's eyes became dark and said, "What will you do if the enemy is actually ours and they keep targeting our loved ones? We couldn't capture them all. How do you know that they won't attack her again? Even if they do, can you actually protect her? You are the king of the underworld. You and the people around you will always be a target. Don't forget that." A silence came to the room after Mu Liang finished. Mu Feng's body started to shook. He asked, "Do you want me to let her go?" Mu Liang felt sorry for his brother. He replied, "Of course not. But you have to choose a path to protect her. She is your beloved and one and only. Whether you stay with her or leave her, you have to protect her with all your might." Then Mu Liang patted his second brother's shoulder and said, "You stay with her. I'll try to find the culprits." "Thanks, brother." Mu Feng mumbled in a low voice. Later Qi Yang informed them that the problem wasn't from their side. For next few months, Mu Liang took the control of the underworld. He didn't let anyone know that it was him, but with the help of Mu Feng's secretary Tasha. This girl was very smart and helped Mu Liang to message every leader of every gang. Mu Liang wanted to find out the link between that rebellious gang and China military. Unfortunately, they didn't leave any useful clue. They hid their tracks well. Not finding any other way, Mu Liang sent 4 spies in 7 days. But the enemy got their tracks. The 4 spies never came alive. Mu Liang found the last one's dead body. That guy's was brutally killed. Other 3 simply vanished. Mu Liang became more remorse. He realized that the enemy planted spies in the underworld. That time, Mu Liang played some tricks. On the surface, he was the one who handled everything, but in reality, he asked for Mu Feng's help. This time, no one knew about the 2 brothers' strategy. In 2 days, Mu Feng found out that the spy was his own secretary Tasha. Before they could get a hold of any information, the secretary was killed by a sniper. A special force caught the sniper, but he killed himself. It was more like God wasn't with Mu brothers. However, they got a message from that sniper. On the paper that sniper wrote, "They are coming." It was a warning. But that was it. Without clues, Mu Liang couldn't investigate anything. Mu Feng also took his throne as king of the underworld. 3 months went by in the blink of the eyes. Mu Feng went to Qi Mansion. Qi Ying had recovered. But she still had nightmares. She would walk inside the mansion and would not go out. Though she was practically well from the outside, her inner self was very weak and she couldn't come closer to strangers. In 3 months, she nearly forgot Mu Feng, and as soon as she looked at him, she would scream. Seeing her like that, a pain rushed through his body. How could Mu Feng able to see such state of his beloved? Not only he failed to protect her, he even failed to punish the criminals. Mu Feng kept thinking, if she wasn't his girlfriend, if she wasn't his, nothing would happen to her. Guilt took over him. For 3 months, he indulged himself in drinks, at his own bar. He didn't stop till he was sent to hospital. The doctors had never seen such disobedient patient. They nearly blew off. Seeing their condition, Lu Feng called Mu Liang for help. Mu Liang came straight to hospital and took some photos of his devastated brother. Then he warned Mu Feng that after Qi Ying would recover, Mu Liang would personally send those photos, if Mu Feng misbehaved. From then on, Mu Feng hated Lu Feng. Time flew on its own accord. Xi Ying recovered completely and so did Mu Feng. One day, Mu Feng went to Qi Ying mansion. Seeing the normal Qi Ying, greeting him normally, he couldn't be happier. That day, for the sake of her happiness, for the sake of her smile, for the sake of her purity, he broke up with her. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 115. Chapter 115, Drifted to the Past Part 6. Mu Feng went home. He suddenly felt very tired. He slept all day. In the evening Qi Yan came to meet him. Looking at Mu Feng's face he sighed deeply. He sat beside Mu Feng and said in a cool voice, "I heard that you broke up with my little sister." Mu Feng sipped red wine and replied, "We haven't found the criminals. They know our every move while we don't. You should also stay away from us." Xi Yang nodded as he understood. He said, "This time, you guys are caught up with a big fish." He took a glass of wine from Mu Feng. Then he asked, "Why do I feel like that the enemy this time has grudge against you?" "Certainly, you the head of the underworld. But, did you do something?" Mu Feng shook his head and said in an airy voice, "Just like you, I never went to China. How come I would go against their military?" Xi Yan sipped the glass and said, "That's true." The room fell into silence. Two friends didn't talk for a long time. It was summer. As the strong wind entered the bar, they felt comfortable. Suddenly Mu Feng asked, "How is she doing?" Xi Yang put down his glass after he finished his wine and said, "Do you think it is a great idea to break up? She is completely fine and no one is blaming you." Mu Feng replied, "I still can't forget her scream and crying face. If it wasn't for my carelessness, she wouldn't suffer like that. And where I'm not sure that I'll be killed or not, how can I provide protection to her? The last thing I want to see her as a widow." He filled his glass and asked again, "How is she, Adat?" Xi Yang sighed and said in a little irritated manner, "Well, what do you think? She never shares her inner feelings. Even if she is torn apart, she won't let us get worried. She doesn't know that it will make us even more worried." Feeling suddenly pissed off, Xi Yang got up and before leaving he said, "Don't regret your decision you made today. Just as I said, no one is blaming you. But I'm relieved that you made that decision, as a brother of Ing." After Qi Yang left, Mu Feng gave a cruel smile and mumbled on his own, "Not blaming? Your whole family was relieved that I broke up with her. You are just too afraid to say that. We, Mu family have no connection with China but Qi family has. Do you think I am stupid?" His eyes burnt in rage. Late at night, Mu Liang came to visit his younger brother. Looking at his brother who was still drinking, he frowned and asked, "Didn't you have enough?" Mu Feng looked at his elder brother with his red eyes. Mu Liang sighed. He sat beside Mu Feng and took a glass. He said in a calm voice, "I heard Qi Yang came to meet you." Mu Feng filled his brother's glass and said, "I found 2 spies. They are nothing but corpse now. Maybe Yang got afraid and wanted to see me thinking if I found out anything." After a pause he said, "I broke up with Ing." Mu Liang frowned again, then he said, "If it were me, I wouldn't do that." "So you are saying that I am going to regret it?" Mu Feng questioned his brother. His eyes were full of mockery. Mu Liang flatly answered, "You will regret it." Hearing such blunt reply, Mu Feng's eyes narrowed. He further asked, "And what if I don't?" "Then you never loved her in begin with." Saying that, Mu Liang sighed. He said, "You should have told her everything. That way she wouldn't suffer." Mu Feng hung his head. "She will forget me easily if she comes to hate me." Mu Liang looked at his brother and said, "You are underestimating her feelings for you. Don't blame me for not warning you." Saying that, Mu Liang left the bar. Mu Feng's eyes were dimmed. He smiled pathetically, thinking, as if I don't understand her. I know her better than anyone. I understand her better than her own family. My Feng sighed and kept thinking. Why does it has to be us? Why does it had to be this way? I know the moment I hold your hand, you have to let go of your family. Can you do that? Your dad fell into their trap. And he sacrificed you for the sake of his own life and company. What will you do if you find that out? If I were to take you with me, I had to let you know it because there is no way in hell I'll let them contact you again. But, wouldn't you become a caged bird? How could I let that happen? I know it will be hard for you, but please please. Please forget us. Please forget me. Just let me protect you from afar. Just let me hold on to our precious memory. Please don't cry. Please don't cry for a guy like me. Soft sobbing filled the silent room. Just as Mu Feng knew, in the Qi mansion, in a beautiful room, on a warm bed, a beautiful girl was sobbing as well. In her right hand, there was a red rose locket which was left by Mu Feng today when he broke up with her. She couldn't blame him. She couldn't blame anyone. She blamed her for her carelessness. And she regretted it deeply. She knew her family was celebrating the fact that they broke up. And she let that happen. She felt guilty, very guilty. She gave pressure to her right hand and soon, blood started to drip from her fist. The red rose became ever redder. However, her hand didn't hurt. She didn't feel any pain at all. How could she feel that? Her heart was hurting even more. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 116. Chapter 116, Don't Go. Chirp. Chirp. The wind was cold and the sun started to rise from the east. The birds woke up and tried to announce that a new day had arrived. Mu Liang woke up by the sound of the birds. The room was dark and cold. Slight light was coming from the window. Mu Liang understood that it wasn't morning yet. Though it was cold, Mu Liang felt warm as he was holding a human flesh. He looked at the woman in his arms who was sleeping soundly. His heart filled with sudden warmth and emotion he couldn't describe. He looked at the cell phone to know about the time. It was almost 5 in the morning. He needed to get out of the campus before anyone could realize that the richest man in the Europe was here to comfort his loving wife. Mu Liang started to stroke Mu Lan's soft face and his other hand circled around her waist. Few seconds later, Mu Lan stirred a little, she frowned and hugged Mu Liang tightly, and then fell asleep again. Mu Liang's heart raced as he witnessed such adorable behavior. He hugged her closer. Later, he moved his face closer to her ear and called her lovingly, "Lan, wake up. I need to go." Mu Lan, who was still in dreamland, nuzzled her face in his crook and said in a sleepy voice, "Don't go." Mu Liang's heart melted by her lovely gesture. He knew that she didn't sleep enough, so he didn't force her to wake up anymore. He smiled sweetly, then made her lay down on the sofa and put his coat over her. Looking at her sleeping face for a while, he bent down to kiss her forehead. Then he got up and went to the washroom. He freshened himself. After that, he checked the freeze and kitchen. Before leaving, he once again looked at his charming sleeping beauty and then left. Mu Lan woke up when the sun rose above. She rubbed her eyes and stretched her hands as she sat on the sofa. With sleepy eyes she looked at the surroundings. She tried to remember how she ended up in sofa. Just when she remembered, her sleepiness flew away. She jumped out of the sofa and searched in the washroom, painting room, and kitchen. When she didn't find Mu Liang, she felt rather disappointed. Her eyes went to the sofa. Seeing his coat, she remembered their last night intimate activity. Her face turned red and heart started to race. Mu Lan also remembered that at dawn before leaving Mu Liang was trying to wake her up. She placed her two palms against her cheeks. Oh my God! Did I just hug him and told him not to go? She tapped her head against the wall. Mu Lan went to washroom and freshened up. Then she checked Qi Ying's temperature. She still had a fever, but the temperature was lower than last night. Mu Lan sighed in relief. She warmed up last night's vegetable soup and slowly ate it. There was no way she would go to class when a patient was in her room. Moreover, Qi Ying was Mu Feng's lover. Mu Lan checked her cell phone and saw 10 messages, and they were all from Mu Feng. He kept asking about Qi Ying, if she woke up or she had eaten or her fever subsided, etc. Thinking of the way Mu Feng cared about Qi Ying, Mu Lan smiled. Then she tapped his number and called him. Before it could ring properly, Mu Feng answered the call. Sister Lan Lan, I was dying, you know. How long you wanted to torture me? Hearing his pained voice, Mu Lan felt sorry. She also felt happy at the same time that Mu Feng was in his usual self. She said, I'm so sorry, Brother Feng, I was sleeping. The other side fell silent. When Mu Lan thought that the call was disconnect, Mu Feng asked, Did my brother visit you last night? He did. Mu Lan was trying to figure out how Mu Feng knew that. Did they contact? When did he leave? Mu Feng inquired. Mu Lan tried to answer in a normal voice. I don't know. Maybe at dawn. I was sleeping soundly. I can't remember anything. Mu Feng was silent again. Then he said in a calm voice, Sister Lan Lan, I'm going to ask you a question. Please answer truthfully. All right. Mu Lan had really bad feeling about it. Mu Feng asked straightforwardly, Did you become all lovey-dovey with my brother right front of Qi Ying? As soon as Mu Lan heard the answer, she became flustered. What are you saying? We aren't that close yet. You sound so suspicious. Mu Lan frowned. Sister Lan Lan never raised her voice like that. They definitely did something. When did my demonic brother become so saint that he won't attack his woman when he gets to see her after 2 days? Sister Lan Lan is a liar. She thought that I wouldn't find it out. Who do she think I am? My poor Ing. Maybe be suffered a heavy blow. Mu Lan understood very well that her lie was exposed. Feeling ashamed, she tried to change the subject. Qi Ying's fever is almost gone. She will wake up soon. I'll give her porridge as soon as she wake up. Just when Mu Feng was hot-headed, hearing about Qi Ying, his went back to normal. He said, Oh, then, please take care of her for the time being. If she waked up, please give me a call. I'll send Dr. Lu Feng to check her up. Mu Lan thought for a moment and then asked, Lu Feng, isn't he the one who treated me? Yes, he is the one. Mu Feng nodded. He is a talented doctor. Where will we meet? Mu Lan thought, I need to talk to the doctor. It's great that it is him. Mu Feng replied, in the cafeteria. You have to take dinner, right? We'll meet there. I am an ex-student of this college. So I won't have problem. Sounds good. Mu Lan hung up. Then she looked at the girl who was sleeping. You got yourself a loving boyfriend. How lucky you are. Mu Lan smiled. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 117. Chapter 117, I was punished. For the time being, Mu Lan took care of Qi Ying. Qi Ying sweated a lot. So, Mu Lan changed her dress and bandages. Qi Ying was still unconscious and it made Mu Lan a bit concerned. She was very curious about Mu Feng and Qi Ying's love affair fact. However, she didn't push anyone to know the fact. She knew that when Qi Ying would wake up, she would tell Mu Lan the story, or Mu Lan would get to know it anyway. Thinking of that, suddenly Mulan's mind went to yesterday night. Mu Liang bit Mulan's left ear and said in a husky voice, "Promise me something." Mulan was feeling too out of herself that she couldn't answer him properly. She only replied, "Hmm." Mu Liang's deep voice echoed in her ear, "Never eat instant noodles." That time Mulan was thinking that her ears would get pregnant if it was going to continue. With whatever sense was left with her, she replied, Mu Liang didn't stop with that. He started caressing her naked waist with his warm hands and said, "If you are hungry, go to the cafeteria." Mulan nodded subconsciously. Thinking of that incident now, Mulan's leg lost strength. With a plop sound, she fell on the floor. Highly embarrassed, she buried her face on the knees and covered her head with her hands. Then she started to roll on the floor and screamed in mind, "Ah!" Now that she was clear-headed, she understood very well that as she ate instant noodle 2 days and didn't take care of herself properly, Mu Liang punished her for that. Mulan shrieked in mind, "I was punished like that because of instant noodles? So shameless! So shameless!" When Qiying woke up, the sun was already saying goodbye to French people. Slowly she opened her eyes and found herself in an unfamiliar room. Just she was about to think anything bad, Mulan popped her head from the painting room. "Oh, you are awake!" she exclaimed. At first, Qiying couldn't recognize Mulan. Slowly she recalled previous night and she also remembered that fact that Mulan helped her. Mulan handed her a glass of hot milk and stretched her right hand to take Qiying's temperature. Then she happily said, "Great news, your fever is gone." She looked at Qiying's blurry eyes, "How are you feeling?" Looking at Mulan's angelic smile, Qiying's tears started to drop like rain. Mulan became flustered seeing her like that. Did I say something wrong? Maybe I triggered last night's event. She must be terrified. Mulan thought. Qiying wiped her tears as she said in hoarse voice, "Thank you for saving me." "Thank you very much." Mulan was a bit embarrassed getting all the credits. She said, "Actually, I wasn't the one who saved you. It was my friend. I called him for help." Qiying shook her head and said, "Still, it was you who came to rescue." With a helpless look, Mulan patted her head. "Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. You must be hungry. I'm going to warm up the porridge my friend cooked for you. You can eat it and we'll talk about what exactly happened." "Okay." Qiying nodded. After Qiying finished her meal, she told Mulan about last night. "I finished study at the library. Then I was going to my room. Before I did, a classmate of mine asked me for help. I'm good at sewing, so sometimes I help the girls. However, she tricked me. She and her 3 friends were at their room. They gave me a juice to drink. After drinking, I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in the dark corner and those 2 boys." She couldn't finish as she shuddered. Mulan squeezed Qiying's hands tightly and thought, "Just as I thought. It had to be those girls." Qiying controlled herself and said, "I'm burdening you." "I'm sorry." Mulan smiled as she got up from the chair. She replied, "I don't think you burdened me though. I'm thinking about your roommates. Aren't they scared to death by now? Qiying got startled by her question and she hurriedly stood up, nearly flipping out the chair. She exclaimed, "Oh my God! Yen Su!" Mulan was dumbfounded. She asked, "Yen Su?" Yen Su was a hot-tempered. She was fuming as she was sitting on a chair in Mulan's room. After a few minutes of silence, she said, "Do you have any idea how worried I was? I couldn't call the dorm manager and I couldn't even ask the guard about it. Last night both Shui Ling and looked for you everywhere we could. We couldn't sleep well." Yen Su was very worried. She knew it wasn't Qiying's fault and she didn't know where to pour her frustration. She stomped her foot angrily. Mulan and Qiying were afraid of her. Though it wasn't their fault, they got scolded. They felt that they were wronged. Yan Su took some deep breaths and calmed herself. Then she looked around the room. Being amazed, she looked at Mu Lan and asked, Hua Lan, are you sure that you aren't keeping some secrets? You didn't tell me your family name yet. Are you an heiress? I've never seen you before in any business parties. Or you might be a princess too. Mu Lan shook her hands as she said, You got it all wrong. I'm nothing like you are imagining. I'm nothing this sort of. It's just that, I can't tell you. Yan Su was stunned. She said, You are pretty blunt, aren't you? Mu Lan bowed a little and said, I'm sorry. Yan Su shook her hand slightly and said, No, it's fine. Everyone has their own secret. You don't have to feel bad. And you did a good job by helping her. Thank you. Mu Lan sighed in relief in mind and said, It was a pure chance. I'm just glad that nothing bad happened to her. Yan Su and Mu Lan were just acquaintance. So, Yan Su didn't bother much. Though she really wanted to look around, she held her desire. She got up and before she left, she told Qiang to come to her own room to take rest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 118. Chapter 118, Tomorrow is a big day. Mu Lan looked at Qiang and said, Yan Su talked about her roommates once. It's good to see that you guys get along. Yes, we do. Qiang nodded and smiled. Mu Lan remembered her first day at dorm and said, She told me about the Queen of Beauty and Bookworm. So you are the Queen and Hua Lan in the Bookworm. Qiang blushed lightly and replied, I'm not sure about the Queen though. But Hua Lan is indeed a genius. You are too modest. Mu Lan looked at her watch and got up. It's time for dinner. Let's go. Okay. Qiang got up too. Mu Lan checked her cell phone before they left. Mu Lan put down the tray and served both of their foods. Qiang took her meal and said, Thank you. My pleasure. Mu Lan opened the lid of the bottle and drank a mouthful water. They silently started to eat. There are very few students in the cafeteria right now because it was almost time to close the cafeteria. Between eating, Mu Lan looked around to look for certain group of girl but she didn't. Just as she sighed in relief, a male voice called out behind Mu Lan, May I sit beside you? Qiang froze on the spot and Mu Lan looked back. Mu Lan was wondering when Mu Feng and Dr. Lu Feng would come. It was Lu Feng. Mu Lan smiled at him and said, It has been a while, Dr. Lu. Thank you for coming all the way. Lu Feng sat beside Mu Lan and said, It is nothing. I was informed that your friend got hurt and I also heard that my patient wasn't taking care of herself properly. He gave a warning look to Mu Lan but his lips were smiling. Scary. It was the only thing Mu Lan thought about Lu Feng. She hurriedly changed the topic and looked at Qiang. She said, Qiang, this is Dr. Lu Feng. He's here to check up health and I also requested him to check you up. Please don't mind it. Qiang shook her head and said, You have done many things for me already. I'm grateful. Then she looked at Lu Feng and said, Hello doctor, I'm Qiang. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Lu Feng greeted her. Qiang looked at Lu Feng deeply. Suddenly Lu Feng became nervous. Qiang asked, Doctor, have I met you before? Lu Feng gulped. Before he came here, Mu Feng warned him thousands of times that he could not remind her of the past. Lu Feng was the one who treated her 4 years ago. He hoped that Qiang couldn't recognize him. But unfortunately she did. Lu Feng tried to be calm as much as possible. He said with a slight smile, If I had such lovely patient as you or Miss Qi, I would definitely remember it. Unfortunately we haven't met before. Qiang nodded and said, I see. Lu Feng changed the topic and looked at Mu Lan accusingly. I heard that you were eating unhealthy food. Tell me, how should I punish you? He looked like a mother hen scolding her chick. Mu Lan said with a pitiful smile, please prescribe me some vitamins. It'll be fine if I start to take them. Feng didn't complain anymore, and from his bag he took out some bottles of vitamins and then pushed them towards Mu Lan. He said, I'm well prepared. Don't you think? Looking at the bottles, Mu Lan's face turned pale. But she neither wanted to be punished by Mu Liang nor did she want to offend her doctor who gave her a new life. In a small voice she said, thank you. After that, he checked Qi Ying's pulse and asked her a few questions about health. Then he gave her some medicine and left. Feng walked out and went towards the parking lot. Feng was sitting on the car. Feng sat inside and said, she'll be fine after a couple of days' rest. Don't worry too much. Did she recognize you? Feng asked calmly. He didn't look as cheerful as usual. She did, almost. However, I did say that this was the first time we met. She was confused and didn't say anything else. Feng paused a little, then continued, more than Xiao Ying's health, I'm worried about Hua Lan's health. Her body is still weak. She does need fresh air and wonderful place to live, but she needs rest more. Saying that, he sighed deeply. But who is going to make her do that? Feng looked at the doctor beside him. Who do you think? Feng admitted, I'll immediately inform Hua Liang. Before Feng could say something, his cell phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw it was from Hugo. Feng answered the call. What now? Hugo's monotonous voice rang out. The 4 girls are captured. We are doing everything according to plan. Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. He said, good job. Don't forget to tell the editors to make the article headline. I understand. Hugo hung up the phone. Feng drove the car as he thought, tomorrow is a big day. I'll bring justice for you. Before I come in front of you, you must take care of yourself. Meanwhile, Mu Lan and Qi Ying finished their meals and headed back to the dorm. Qi Ying had recovered and she didn't need to stay at Mu Lan's room anymore. So she went to 3rd floor, in her room where Yen Su and Shui Ling stay. Mu Lan was worn out. Though she was tired, she changed the bed sheet, bed cover, pillow cover. She also changed the comforter. She put all the clothes in the washing machine. After drying them, she took a bath and went to sleep. Both Qi Ying and Mu Lan slept soundly, but those who made them suffer yesterday were having nightmares. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 119. Chapter 119, front page of the newspaper. Next morning was fresh and bright. Mu Lan woke up with a light mood. She finished her breakfast in cafeteria and went back to her room. She turned on her laptop and started to search for Hua Lan. I wasted 2 days. I can't do it anymore. I need to find who I really am. Mu Lan sipped the hot milk. She took out a book from the attached bookshelf and opened it. The book was called, How to Hack. This book had every possible way to show tricks how to hack. Mu Lan's thought was, if she had to hack Chinese intelligence, she needed that book. However, before that, she had to practice. She had no interest to get caught. Mu Lan's first choice was social media. Although she didn't know about her previous life, she thought that as a normal student she might have social media account. The only problem was, if she had opened his account in fake name, she could do nothing about it. Mu Lan was too caught up with searching process to realize that it was already noon. Just when she thought of taking break, her cell phone chimed. Mu Lan looked at the cell phone screen. It was a message from Qi Ying. In WeChat, she wrote, Hua Lan, did you read today's newspaper? Or did you see the news? Reading the message, Mu Lan frowned. She didn't have any television in her room, so she could only read newspaper through internet. Before she could think of anything, she searched in internet. She checked the most popular daily newspaper. Looking at the front page, Mu Lan's jaw dropped. In the first newspaper, the headline was about 4 female students was caught because of drugs and group sex. The reporter said that this group of girls were related to drug dealers and the girls had created a group for sex to sell the drugs. These girls were from very rich families and they were very spoiled. They were drug addicts since teenagers and their families knew nothing about it. FBI had been looking for the drug dealers and the drug seller for 2 years. 2 days ago, they found some tracks and clues. When they reached the hotel through the track, they found a group of men and women were having sex. They were caught red-handed. Those people were found naked and were taking drugs. Even though the FBI came to arrest them, they just had no clue what was going on. They were too drowsy to be interrogated. Soon the FBI found that the group sex party was organized by the 4 girls. In addition to that, they were directly related to the drug dealer the FBI was looking for. The reporter was very cooperative to write down the details of those 4 girls' backgrounds and photos. However, he skillfully neglected the fact that they were students of Pierre and Marie Curie University. Even if the reporter didn't mention it, the whole university would get to know that since those girls were popular gang. The second big news after the drug news was 2 male students' cruel death. They were also related to the drug dealer the FBI was looking for. Somehow, those 2 men got killed for unknown reason. The pictures and names were given in the newspaper. The FBI was currently investigating the reason of the death. But their thought was that the male students died because they had some conflicts with the gang, so the gang ripped off the 2 male students' hands and tortured them thoroughly by peeling their skin and then threw the bodies in the backside of the casino where the drug dealer was working and hide. It was a horrible way to kill. If the faces were also peeled off, the FBI couldn't find their identities. Mu Lan kept reading the details and her whole body started to get numb in fear. She recognized those 2 men and 4 women very well. They were no other than the people who tried to harm Chiang that night. Mu Lan could tell that those people were just bad eggs, but she couldn't imagine that they were rotten to the core. She shivered thinking of those naked bodies. She really wanted to vomit. She thought all of that, but never in a million years she imagined the fact that it might be the work of Mu Feng. All of a sudden, she thought of Chiang. If I feel like puking, what about Chiang? She looks so soft-hearted. Can she hold it alone? Thinking of that, she gave Chiang a call. When Chiang didn't answer the call, Mu Lan sent her a message to invite her at lunch. Mu Lan's class would start after lunch, so she wasn't in a hurry. She didn't even have the interest in searching about herself either. As she felt restless, she headed towards the library. It was the only place to make herself calm. In the library, Mu Lan took some books about hacking skills, computer science, searching through satellite, etc. She took them with her and found a place around corner and sat closer to the window. As she started to read, a girl stood in front of her. Mu Lan looked at the girl. It was that white jade skin girl with ash eyes and red lips. Her brown hair made her face and skin even more attractive. But the girl had no care for her own charm. She wore black glasses and cheap shirt with worn-out jeans. Her eyes were sharp as she looked at Mu Lan. She bowed to Mu Lan formally and said in a beautifully soft voice, "Thank you for saving Xiaoying." Mu Lan understood right away that this girl in front of her was talking about Chiang. Is this girl Chiang's friend? Maybe the bookworm girl Yin Su and Chiang talked about, could it be her? Mu Lan thought. She said, "And you are?" The girl looked little uncomfortable as she tried to hide her embarrassment. Sorry for my late introduction. I'm Fa Shuelin. I'm Yin Su and Xiaoying's roommate. Nice to meet you. I knew it. What Mu Lan thought was correct. She was the bookworm. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 120. Chapter 120, I need to talk to him. Mu Lan smiled at the girl and said, I'm Hua Lan. Nice to meet you too. She also bowed respectfully. If Hua Lan was respectful to her, then it was only normal for Mu Lan to be the same. Please don't stand there. Why don't you sit? Seeing Mu Lan so polite, Hua Lan nodded as she took a sit. She opened her book and started to read. Mu Lan looked at the book. It was about how to win friends and influence people. Hua Lan had another book with her about controlling emotion. Mu Lan got curious as she asked, Are you in psychology department? Without even looking at Mu Lan, Hua Lan replied in a short voice, Mu Lan blinked. Did she just ignored me? She blinked again. Isn't she the one who came to talk to me first? Then why is she ignoring me now? Is it because she wanted to thank me and that was it? Now that there was no reason for her to talk, she won't actually talk. Pretty interesting. Mu Lan didn't know to cry or laugh. Since she opened her eyes, she kept meeting weird people every day. She buried her face in the book. At lunchtime, Mu Lan got message from Qiang that she wanted to join Mu Lan for lunch. Mu Lan immediately left the library. When Mu Lan saw Qiang at the cafeteria, she felt bad, because Qiang's face was pretty pale. Mu Lan felt bad as well as worried. She asked, How are you holding? Both Qiang and Mu Lan sat face to face. Qiang had ice cream and Mu Lan took cheeseburger. Qiang pondered before she opened her mouth. Hua Lan, there is something I want to ask you. Can I? Qiang's voice was so light that in this crowded cafeteria Mu Lan hardly could hear her. Mu Lan answered her, Of course you can ask. What is it you want to know? Qiang took 2 spoonfuls ice cream and put it in her mouth. After finishing the ice cream in her mouth, she meekly asked, Hua Lan, do you know Mu Feng? In the last stage, when Qiang mentioned Mu Feng, her voice quivered a little. Just then Mu Lan thought someone threw her a bucket of cold water. She could remember that yesterday Mu Feng repeatedly told her not to talk to Qiang about him at all. However, what could Mu Lan do when Qiang was the one who mentioned it first? Mu Lan tried to smile, but it was more like a forced smile. She tried to say, Xiaoying, what are you? For years ago, when I was abducted and drugged, Mu Feng peeled the criminal's skin. I was his girlfriend and so I was targeted. I almost died back then. Mu Feng felt guilty and broke up with me. Though this time it wasn't his fault, he still punished those who hurt me. Just like 4 years ago, this time he peeled their skin. Qiang shuddered as she continued, Please tell me that you know Mu Feng. I need to talk to him, please. Hearing such mournful plead, how could Mu Lan refuse? She was really shocked about Mu Feng and Qiang's past. Mu Lan wanted to shudder but she controlled herself. She thought for a moment and then revealed, Yes, I know Mu Feng. Seeing Qiang's eyes got brightened, Mu Lan was relaxed. He is like a brother to me. I have his contact number. But I think you guys should talk to each other face to face. I know his contact number. What I want is a good talk with him. Hua Lan, can you please arrange it for me? Qiang grabbed Mu Lan's both hands and requested. If you don't do it, I'm afraid Mu Feng won't come to meet me. Looking at Qiang's earnest expression, Mu Lan couldn't bring herself to say no. Meanwhile, Mu Feng got a call from his elder brother. Big brother, I was thinking about you. How did I do? Mu Liang steadily said, Good job. Especially hiding the name of the university. It was a good thing that Mu Feng hid where the students went to study. If the people got to know it, the reputation of the university would turn out pretty bad. It would be bad for both Mu Lan and Qiang. Mu Feng was also satisfied with his job. So he said in a happy tone, Big brother, then let me enjoy myself tonight. Suit yourself. Mu Liang hung up the call. Mu Feng went to Bluestone Bar with his some male friends. That bar was well known for pretty girls. Many times Mu Feng went to the bar to have fun with women. He called Hugo Muller to join him, but Hugo immediately refused because he had to protect Mu Lan. Moreover, he had many horrible experiences because of women. It was partly Mu Feng's fault too, and so he had no desire to go there again. There were still some times before the nightfall. Hugo was tracing Mu Lan when she called out, "Young miss." Hugo politely greeted Mu Lan, who was eating potato chips. Hearing his greetings, Mu Lan frowned. She said, "How many times do I have to tell you not to call me that? Other will think of me as mistress of some sugar daddy or something." Hugo bluntly said, "There is no one who can hear me, young miss." Mu Lan looked around and saw that there was actually no one around then. She sighed and said, "Fine, you win." She looked at Hugo. "There is something I need to ask you. It is very important. As long as I have the information, I'll provide it to you, young miss." Hugo sat beside Mu Lan and observed the area with his professional eyes. "Do you know where Brother Feng is? I called him, but his mobile is switched off," Mu Lan said as she offered Hugo potato chips. Hugo shook his head to let her know that he didn't want potato chips and hesitated to answer at first. Perhaps Mu Lan looked very earnest and cute. Hugo couldn't say that he didn't know. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 121. Chapter 121, Worth TOC. /N, I edited last chapter. Don't forget to read it. Mu Lan was laying down on the bed. After lunch, she could hardly concentrate in the class and hiding her emotion, she asked Hugo to give her the information where Mu Feng would be in the evening. After getting Hugo's hesitant approval, she went to her room. Mu Lan still could not forget what Chiang told her at lunch. "For years ago, when I was abducted and drugged, Mu Feng peeled the criminal's skin." After that, what else she said, Mu Lan didn't hear them at all. It took Mu Lan whole afternoon to digest what Chiang said. Her whole body shook as she remembered every word. She hugged herself tightly. No. I should not, I must not panic. I need to calm down. Slowly, she started to take deep breaths. Once, twice, thrice, Mu Lan started to relax her body. Her shivering body was now still. As her mind became clear, her brain started to work like roller coaster. Mu Feng is always kind and gentle. How come he could do such thing? Is it because Chiang suffered so he punished them like that? But hurting people is wrong. Why does he have to be so ruthless? Mu Lan clutched the bed sheet tightly. When she realized that her body started to shake again, she took another deep breath. No, Mu Feng was not the only one who was wrong. Those girls and boys, what they did was also wrong. If something would happen to Chiang, she might die from humiliation. Isn't that why Mu Feng did that? More importantly, they were criminals and did many horrible deeds. Even the FBI was hunting them down. Getting rid of them was good for society. But torturing those boys like that. Mu Lan shook her head. When she recalled the night when Mu Feng was looking at sleeping Chiang, his expression was hurt, his body was shaking. Mu Lan's heart calmed down. When it comes to heart, Mu Feng is very delicate. He seeks for love from someone he can't get it. He was hurt when he saw Chi Ying's condition. He couldn't protect her in time and that gave him extreme pain. He was also mad at those who actually dared to harm her. All those emotions developed in his heart and he didn't have any place to vent them. So what did he do? He captured those people and punished them with his heart's content. It was a demonic act, but this way he protects his loved ones. Not everyone is same and no one is perfect. At least, he is generous and kind to others, and cruel to his foes only. I shouldn't blame him. I have no right to blame him. Because I wasn't the one who was suffered. They are so rich. Who knows? Maybe the FBI also helped him too. In the evening, in Blue Stone Bar, 4 ladies went inside. 4 of them had their own charm. 4 of them could be called beauties. One of them was wearing Beverly red strappy bodycon dress. It was a short-fitting dress making her body curves exposed to wild eyes. She had pinkish white skin. Her long hazel-colored hair was trying to cover her back, which was trying to be exposed. Her transparent black eyes were very captivating. Her rosy lips had no lipstick. She tried to be calm as she walked together with her companion. The men who looked at her forgot to blink. One of her companion was wearing a blue prom dress. Her golden hair was tied and her green eyes were glancing around the bar. Men in the bar held their breaths. Beside the blonde queen was the tallest girl. She had yellow-white skin and her black hair was also tied up. She wore a strapless pink short dress. The dress was tight and very revealing. All her curves were very alluring. The women in the bar became jealous and the men's throats got dry. Beside them were another girl who people noticed only once, then took their eyes off of her. She looked very out of places. She wore a t-shirt and a shirt. They were not revealing and so not enticing. Her brown hair was loosely tied and glasses were covering her ash eyes. She closely observed everyone's reaction. When she saw that people had no interest in her, she slightly smiled and became relaxed. Mu Lan asked Qiying, "Did you find him?" They both looked around to see where Mu Feng could sit. The one who found that out was Qiying. Mu Feng was sitting with bunch of men and women. Mu Lan sweated just looking at him. Just she was about to suggest that they should leave the place, Qiying sat just beside the next section of where Mu Feng Saturday. Both sides of the bar had some sections separated by transparent glass. Qiying sat exactly where she could see Mu Feng. When she sat there, Mu Lan, Yansu and Hua Lan also sat one by one. In the afternoon, when Mu Lan mentioned that she wanted to go to Blue Stone Bar, Qiying understood why Mu Lan mentioned it. She was about to agree to go with Mu Lan. That's when Yansu said that her mother was the owner of that bar. It was even famous for excellent cocktails. She then invited all 3 of them to go there together. Hua Lan didn't want to go, but how could a bookworm win against a martial artist? In the bar, Yansu ordered cocktails and they started to drink. However, Qiying kept looking straight ahead of her. Yansu found it suspicious and she looked at the direction where Ying was looking. When she realized that Ying was looking at Mu Feng, she smiled slightly. She said in a low voice, "Look who it is." Both Mu Lan and Qiying was startled. Mu Lan got some courage and asked, "Who do you see?" Mu Feng, king of the underworld, also known as a famous womanizer. When Yansu said womanizer, Ying's body stiffed. Yansu looked at her and said, "Xiaoying, you like him, don't you? When you guys were dating, you never knew what kind of womanizer he was. We got a good chance to see tonight. Let's not miss it." "He is what?" "No wonder that he acted viciously towards those guys. Now it makes sense." Mu Lan was excited as she asked, "How did you know they were actually dating?" Qiying was embarrassed hearing the question. In the business world, who didn't know their story? But that's not important. Rumors says that though Feng is a goddamn womanizer. However, he always maintains an appropriate distance with women. I would like to see how he does that. Yansu replied teasingly. A womanizer maintains appropriate distance with women? Worth to see. Mu Lan thought as she also started to observe with great interest. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 122. Chapter 122, that's his charm? Mu Feng was sitting on the sofa. His mood was relaxed. He was smiling and drinking. Occasionally, he was looking the girls beside him and made few comments. The girls giggled as they heard him. The 4 girls from the next section were very curious about what he just said. However, the glass separation didn't let them hear anything. Yan Su became frustrated. Oh, come on. How am I supposed to hear what he just said? Hua Lan sipped the glass of pink cocktail and said, he was telling jokes. The other 3 girls looked at her in amazement. Mu Liang asked her first, can you read lips? Hua Lan nodded while drinking. 3 girls beside her were stunned. Is she some kind of secret agent? They thought. Yan Su said, okay genius, do share what he just said. Can a kangaroo jump higher than a house? Of course, a house does not jump at all. Hua Lan said directly. She didn't stop a second, and when she said, she had her usual poker face. It made the joke even funny. Put. It was a good thing that Yan Su already gulped down the cocktail she had in her mouth, or else, she would be choked to death by now. Mu Liang controlled herself from spraying out the drink in her mouth. Qiang only smiled a little and nothing more. What kind of joke is that? Yan Su couldn't control her laugh. So, this is it? That's his charm? Come on women, have some dignity. Hua Lan said, he said another joke. I managed to lose my rifle when I was in the army. I had to pay $855 to cover the loss. I'm starting to understand why a Navy captain always goes down with his ship. Ah ha ha ha. Yan Su laughed loudly. This time, Mu Feng was playing with a girl's hair. Then he filled each of the girls' empty glasses. They all together cheered and started to drink. He looked very happy. He was good with women when it came to gossip. Naturally, men were not used to gossip like women. Mu Feng was different. It was his natural talent, the way he would gossip with women like he was one of them. It made him very popular. In outer look, it seemed that he was gossiping. However, it was his way of gathering information. And he liked this strategy very much. It also made him popular with women. I mean, who doesn't like gossiping anyway? Mu Liang observed for a while, then said, did you see? The women over there are sitting closely to other guys while the women around Mu Feng kept their distance. It is odd, don't you think? Yan Su shook her head. No, actually there was a rumor about it. A girl once dared to sit on his lap in here. Mu Feng was smiling all along. He hugged her waist and said something closer to her ear which no one heard except her. That girl became as pale as white sheet. It was the last time the people saw her here. Next day the girl was found dead. Police said that the cause was having excessive drugs. No one pointed at Mu Feng. However, since then girls do not dare to get close to him. Yan Su looked at Qiang and asked as she frowned, Xiaoying, aren't you drinking too much? Hearing her question, Mu Liang and Hua Lan also looked at Qiang. Qiang indeed looked tipsy. Her face was flushed and she looked adorable. Actually, she wasn't the only one. All 4 of them were slightly drunk. Hua Lan took 3 glasses and she started to see everything double. Mu Lan's face was already red. Her eyes became hazy and she couldn't think straight. She already had 5 glasses. Yan Su also had 5 glasses. But her alcohol tolerance was better than her friends. She was still a bit sober. Qiang kept looking at Mu Feng as she drank another 2 glasses of cocktails. Then she stood up and said, I want to dance. Then she stopped towards the dance floor. The other 3 was looking at her, but said nothing. Hua Lan laughed lightly and said, she is jealous. But she cannot do anything. Women are sometimes so powerless. In the last sentence, her voice became distant and melancholic. They kept drinking and suddenly Yan Su stood up hurriedly. Mu Liang looked at her in daze and asked, what's wrong? When Mu Liang didn't get any answer, she looked at Yan Su's face. Yan Su looked astonished as her jaw was dropped. Being curious, Mu Lan looked at the direction Yan Su was looking and she almost had a heart attack. Xi Ying was totally drank. Anyone could understand just by looking at her. She was dancing alone at first. A drank man tried to grope her and she twisted his hand and slammed him on the floor. Mu Lan slowly stood up. Her jaw also dropped. She could not believe what she saw. If it was Yan Su, she would believe that. But it was Qi Ying. The shy, introverted girl who loves nothing but sewing and gardening. How could she even do that? Qi Ying's eyes were red. She looked pissed off. She had a murderous aura all around her. Her body was stiff as she was about to hunt down her prey. She doesn't look like a girl I know. It seems that she is totally a different person. Could it be she has double personality? Mu Lan couldn't think anymore. Drowsiness came over her. She sat down and lounged in the sofa. It was soft and comfortable. She remembered her bed in Mu Mansion. It was also very soft, like she was laying down on wool. She thought about Mu Liang. When he would hug her, she would feel at ease. Mu Lan smiled. She took another glass of cocktail and drank half of it. However, before she could finish it, someone took the glass from her and put it down on the table. She wanted to look at the person, but her eyes were too blurry to see anything properly. She felt annoyed. She pouted her lips and tried to take the glass. However, the person took her in arms and didn't let her take the glass. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 123. Chapter 123, Why Don't You Ask Your Woman? Hugo was following the 4 charming girls from university campus. The girls went to Bluestone Bar. Hugo sat in the corner as he kept an eye on them. Hugo was feeling very nervous. He saw Mu Feng sitting next section of the group. Mu Feng had very sharp eyes. If he were to see Hugo in the bar, he would drag him around the women and would make joke out of him. However, it wasn't the only problem. The girls would know that they were being followed and Mu Lan would become cautious around him, and that would make his job difficult. Moreover, Hugo's disguise as a student would be revealed. Further, the girls wanted to check out Mu Feng, and if Mu Feng got to know that the girls were spying on him, Mu Feng would catch Hugo, because Hugo knew where Mu Feng would be and so would the girls. Furthermore, both his young misses were alluring tonight. If guys tried to flirt with them, Hugo definitely had to protect them. But if he touched any one of those two, wouldn't be his hands cut off? His boss and boss's younger brother both were so possessive when it came to their women. Hugo sighed deeply as he took a glass of orange cocktail. It was named the Sidecar. The Sidecar was a famous cocktail created in Paris. It was said to have been invented because a regular would arrive at the bar after riding his motorcycle with a sidecar, wanting a drink straight away. The drink was a simple mixture of brandy or cognac, orange liqueur, and lemon juice. Hugo liked it very much. Hugo was alert and he could hear almost everything. He finished one of his glass and suddenly Qi Ying got up from the sit. She went straight to the dance floor. Hugo looked at Mu Lan, who was really drunk and her face was flushed. That's when he heard the conversation. A man was saying, "This red dress girl is so hot." Another one said, "Yeah, look at her body. Her boobs are huge, and she wore such sexy dress, is she here to hunt man?" The others laughed loudly. There was another guy who said, "I would love to become her prey." The second man said, "Let's have a bet. The person who takes her to bed tonight will get $5,000. Hugo heard what he wanted. Of course, before the 3 men even made a bet, Hugo sent a message to certain someone. Mu Liang was sitting inside the car with his 2 friends. One of them was Lu Feng and another one was a mysterious man. They were talking about Chinese business. That's when Mu Liang's cell phone chimed. Mu Liang checked the phone and saw Hugo send a message, and it was, "Young Mrs. at Bluestone. She is drunk. Should I take her home?" Mu Liang frowned and sent a reply, "You wish?" Then he told driver Ronald to stop the car. Meanwhile, Hugo gulped as he read the message. Feng asked, "Did something happen?" Mu Liang took the driver's seat and let Ronald sit on the passenger seat. Mu Liang replied, "Change of plans. We are going to Bluestone." Feng was puzzled. Bar? Why now? He knew the largest collection of drinks were in Mu Mansion. There was no need for Mu brothers to go to the bar, unless it was for someone else. The mysterious guy beside them was sitting quietly. His eyes were smiling. He said, "Fine." Ronald said, "Please hold on tight." As soon as Mu Liang started the engine, the car went crazy and drove in the highest force. Mu Liang reached the 20 minutes location in 6 minutes 38 seconds. Feng felt like he was going to vomit. Ronald was sitting inside the car and the other 3 men went inside the bar. Mu Liang took 4 seconds to locate Mu Lan. His eyes grew bigger as he saw her appearance. She was wearing a very revealing short red dress. Her body curves were exposed to naked eyes. She was drunk and her face was enchanting. Her teary, dizzy eyes wanted men to make her cry even more. Mu Liang saw there were other 2 girls, sitting beside her fully drunk, and Qiang was hitting a man. Feng, beside Mu Lan's section, was having fun and didn't catch anything what was going on. Everything became clear to Mu Liang as daylight. It must be Qiang who understood who punished those culprit, and for some reason, she somehow found out that Mu Lan knew Mu Feng. So Qiang asked Mu Lan's help. Hugo gave Mu Lan the location and the 4 of them came all together. Seeing Mu Feng flirting with other girls, Qiang had gone crazy in jealousy. Mu Liang thought that if Mu Feng was not in here, Mu Lan didn't have to come here in the first place. And she would never wear such clothes unless someone would force her. It could only be Jin Corporation's wild princess Jin Yansu. To Mu Liang, criminal was already determined. It was Mu Feng. His eyebrow rose as he saw Mu Lan taking another glass of red cocktail when she was already drunk. Mu Liang strode towards her and gently snatched the glass from her hand and put it on the table. Mu Lan pouted, and seeing such adorable face, Mu Liang's heart shook violently. He took the girl in his arms and realized that her back was open as his hand touched her skin directly. He gritted his teeth and got out of the section and went to Mu Feng. Mu Feng, who was smiling and playing with a girl's hair, saw his big brother standing in the doorway with his dearest sister-in-law. Mu Feng's jaw almost dropped as he jumped up and came closer to Mu Liang. "Big brother, what a pleasant surprise. I didn't know you were here. You even got Sister Lan drunk. How bold of you, big brother. Tell me, who invited whom?" Mu Feng's eyes sparkled like 1,000 stars were glittering in the sky. Mu Liang wanted to knock his younger brother off. He would do that if his hands weren't occupied carrying Mu Lan. Veins popped out on his temple. His eyes were as cold as North Pole. He gave a chilling smile and said in the coldest voice of the winter, "Why don't you ask your woman?" He moved a little right to let his brother show what was going on in the dance floor. Mu Feng's smile vanished as his eyes went further away from his brother when he saw the golden-haired girl in blue prom dress and some men were trying to touch her. Mu Liang left the bar with the girl in his arms. Before leaving, he ordered Hugo to take care of his guest. The people in the bar were gawking at the scene. Mostly rich people would come to this bar and many of them knew famous Mu Liang. Seeing a drunk girl hugging his neck and he was being gentle to her, the people thought they were hallucinating. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 124. Chapter 124, Last Thread of Control. Mu Liang took Mu Lan out of the bar. Mu Lan was hugging his neck. She was very unsatisfied at the person who took the glass away from him. She wanted to punish that person. But for now, she wanted to see where this person would take her. Mu Liang went inside the car and ordered Ronald, drive to home. Ronald was stunned. Where did young miss come from? And she looks drunk. Doesn't Master want young miss to send her to the campus? As Ronald hesitated, Mu Liang asked in an icy voice, what? Ronald stammered, be but young miss. Drive. Mu Liang was already in the worst mood. He wanted to burst in flames, but the soft feeling in his arms made him unable to do so. Yes, master. Ronald started the engine and drove to the Mu mansion. Mu Lan was moving her legs. She felt uncomfortable and stuffy. She moved her body. Mu Liang looked down at her. He adjusted his sitting posture to make her comfortable and hugged her closer. He kept running his fingers through her hazel-colored hair. It made her feel at ease. Suddenly Mu Lan felt funny and giggled like a kid. Then she rubbed her head on Mu Liang's warm chest like a spoiled kid. Seeing her happy drunk face, Mu Liang also became cool. His mood became lighter than it was minutes ago. Within an hour, they reached their destination. As usual, Butler Leo welcomed them politely, welcome BA. When he saw Mu Lan in Mu Liang's arms, he lost his words. Uncle Leo, I missed you. The moment Mu Lan saw the old butler, her expression changed and became very happy. It was like a puppy found its master. The moment she said, Uncle Leo, I missed you, Mu Liang's face became as black as back of the old pot. He raised an eyebrow and thought, so you missed the old butler and you forgot your husband? Butler Leo had no idea what to do at that moment. Should he greet young mistress or calm down young master's temper? Mu Liang ignored everyone in the entrance and said in the coldest voice, don't disturb us. Then he went to upstairs. Everyone in the entrance were frozen by the sudden low temperature. When Mu Lan saw that the place was familiar and she was being carried to her room, she started to fight back. No, I want to drink the juice. I want that juice. Give me that. Mu Liang took her in her room. With his leg he slammed the door close. After that, he turned on the dim light. Then he put her in the bed and started to take off her shoes. In the dim light, Mu Lan looked closely to the face who carried her here. Her eyes were clearer than before. She recognized the man and exclaimed as he hugged him warmly and tightly, Liang, it's you. I missed you very, very much. She giggled as she snuggled closer. She liked his manly scent. It would make her at ease. Mu Liang froze on the spot. All the anger and sulking flew away from the window. He hugged her back and said in a deep voice, I missed you too. He didn't let go, neither did Mu Lan. After a few minutes, when Mu Liang found no movement from Mu Lan, regretfully he thought that she fell asleep. He slowly laid her down. That's then he saw her sulking face. Mu Liang was startled by her expression. Did I do something to her? He thought. Before he could ask what's wrong, Mu Lan said as she pouted, Liang, you bully. You took my juice away. You need to be punished. Mu Liang did not have any chance to speak up, because before he could do that, he was forced to get close to her and his lips were captured by Mu Lan's alluring lips. At first, Mu Liang couldn't register what just happened. When he felt her warm lips against him, his body shook violently. He tried to control his desire, which was buried deep inside his heart. But then Mu Lan's tongue slipped inside his mouth. Mu Lan's tongue played with Mu Liang's tongue. As the tongue twirled together, it felt warm, soft, slippery, and desirable. Mu Liang's last bit of strength was lost and the thread to control his desire snapped. Mu Liang grabbed Mu Lan's side of the head with right hand and his left hand circled around Mu Lan's waist. He pulled her closer as he kissed her back. When Mu Lan first woke up, Mu Liang wanted to hold his desire to kiss her back. He wanted to kiss her pink, rosy lips so many times. He wished to devour her many times. But this heartless maiden had no sympathy for him whatsoever. She cracked his last bit of self-defense, and now he became the most passionate beast in the world. At first, his kisses were soft and tender, then it became passionate, and then it turned into storm. The silent room filled up with the sound of kissing and rustle sounds of clothes. Mu Liang took off his shoes with the help of his legs and then straddled her. He ripped off his shirt and pulled off his pant. Still, he didn't let go of Mu Lan's rosy lips as he kissed her from different angles. Their tongues started to become numbed as they both felt the taste of blood inside their mouths. His hands roamed around her body. Her back was naked. His hands torn apart the thin laces of the dress and took off her dress. When they both were out of oxygen, Mu Liang let go Mu Lan's lips. Their tongues were connected with thin layer of saliva. Both of them were breathing with their mouths, and their faces and eyes were red. Their hearts were beating wildly and their breaths were irregular. Mu Liang looked down at Mu Lan's body. She wasn't wearing any bra. Her naked bosom was touching his naked chest. His eyes went dark. His breaths became heavy again. In a husky voice he said, "Lan, you are so sexy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 125. Chapter 125, in the most important time. Mu Lan, who was just kissed so passionately, had no way of thinking anything anymore. She could care less what was going on. Her eyes were teary and lips were swollen and felt painful. Mu Lan's body was naked in front of Mu Liang. Her body was slim and tender. Her pinkish skin was supple and creamy like a body of a princess. It was absolutely flawless. On the other hand, Mu Liang's body was well-toned. His muscles made his body more attractive. His white skin was very desirable. Their bodies were truly perfect for each other. Mu Liang's body was in flames. His innermost desire wanted to devour the naked girl in front of him. Mu Liang didn't wait any longer as he trailed down kisses from her forehead, temples, ears, neck, nape, collarbone to cleavage. He could smell her vanilla scent. His mind went blank in desire to taste her skin. This time, he didn't stop when he kissed her breasts and fondled them with his hands. Mu Lan realized that her body was acting different. Her head was dizzy. Her body was trembling as she felt excitement. She could only tell that her heart and body wanted the man in front of her. When she felt that Mu Liang's hot, passionate lips were touching her naked skin, she writhed her body against his naked form and moaned softly. Subconsciously, her hands went around Mu Liang's neck and pulled him closer to her. At her touch, Mu Liang's body stiffed. He stopped kissing her right nipple and slowly looked at her. Mu Lan's was looking at fuzzy eyes. Her eyes' lips were open as if they were inviting Mu Liang. Mu Liang couldn't help but kiss her lips again. He nibbled her lower lip, licked her lips, and then he entered his tongue. Their tongues intertwined as they played with each other. His lower body started to show its reaction. Mu Liang held her down to grind his lower part against hers. Liang. Mu Lan moaned and Mu Liang groaned. This time Mu Lan took the initiative. She held Mu Liang down as they changed their posture. She kissed his lips hungrily. Then her lips moved to his forehead, temples. After that, she nibbled his ears and then she licked them, kissed them, bit them. Mu Liang gritted his teeth as his hands circled around Mu Lan's naked waist and held her down to his lower body. His lower part didn't miss the chance and poked her back. Mu Lan's breath hitched. At that moment, she was licking his nape. As her breath hitched, she bit Mu Liang's nape and gave him a hickey. Finding it funny, she giggled. Her drowsy head remembered how Mu Liang gave hickeys to her. Mu Lan looked at Mu Liang's dark eyes. Her face was completely serious, but her eyes had some hidden meaning. Before Mu Liang could find out her plan, she pounced over him and started to bite and lick his nape, neck, collarbones, and she went down to his nipples, leaving all the hickeys. Just as he did to her, she began to suck them too. Mu Liang's throat became dry. His body started to shake. His right hand went to her head to hold it tenderly. When he couldn't take it anymore, he stopped her by suddenly bringing his right hand in front of her lips. Mu Lan looked at the man she was devouring. Then she looked down at his hand and began to lick it. Just like his skin, it was salty. Mu Liang fondly rubbed Mu Lan's cheek with his left hand as she kept licking his right palm. She kept licking until she moved her lips to his wrist, then arm and then shoulder. She began to brush her naked form against his. Mu Liang's body hardened. However, he didn't stop her. He wanted to see that in drunken state how much she could do. He kept enjoying her kissing, licking, and biting. Soon, Mu Lan went to lower abdomen. That's when Mu Liang's body stiffed. For him, it was hard to believe that she would go that far. Dizzily, Mu Lan found the hardening thing that kept rubbing itself to her lower body. She touched it and then tightened her grasp around it. Mu Liang lost control. He gritted his teeth and flipped her over. Mu Lan gave a short scream as she laid down under him. He groped her buttocks. He started kissing her lips and his attention returned to her bosom as he stroked her body against his. Ah! Mu Lan cried out as she held down Mu Liang's head. She scratched his back with his sharp nails. Mu Liang spread her trembling legs and positioned him against her. His right hand went to her the softest spot. When he touched the place, it felt moist. He continuously rubbed his fingers against the wall and was making the place wetter. Mu Lan's breaths hitched. She couldn't control her voice as she screamed louder. Her body shuddered in pleasure. Her head started to feel dizzy. Her mind began to go blank. Mu Liang lowered his face to look at her innermost forbidden place. He rubbed his nose on her wet panties. Then he took off her last defense. Her legs twitched, but she didn't moan, neither she made this time. Finding that odd, Mu Liang looked at her. Mu Lan's eyes were closed. He wasn't sure that she lost consciousness or she fell asleep. She drank too much this time. But she held it longer than previous time. Mu Liang could hardly believe that this woman just fell asleep in the most important time. He deeply sighed. He looked at his lower body, which was still active and burning. He thought of taking a cold shower. But thinking of that she would feel cold, he gritted his teeth one more time and laid down beside her. But both of their bodies were sticky in sweat. So it was uncomfortable. Mu Liang got up from the bed. He took a soft towel and soaked it in cool water. Then he wiped Mu Lan's whole body. After finishing the task, he took a cold shower. Finally, he slipped into the warm bed. He put a blanket over them and hugged her closer. He looked at her angelic face and couldn't help but kiss her swollen lips before he drifted to sleep. It was a long day for him too. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 126. Chapter 126, I Hate You. Blue Stone Bar. When Mu Liang left with Mu Lan, Mu Feng was still dumbfounded as he saw Qiying. She was wearing an elegant blue prom dress and her golden hair was tied in a bun. She was completely drunk and her other personality showed up. For years ago, once Qiying got drunk and for the first time in her life she let other except her know the fact that she had double personality. And that was Mu Feng. To her surprise, Mu Feng could tame that wild Qiying. 4 years later, Mu Feng got the chance to see that wild person again. When Mu Feng saw that the love of his life was being touched by 3 drunken men, his eyes turned cold. For a moment, he forgot everyone in this room except Qiying and the other 3 perverts. He slowly strode towards them. Just when the largest man tried to touch Qiying's left breast, Mu Feng grabbed the wild Xiang and pulled her against his body. When the three drunken men saw Mu Feng's chilling gaze, immediately they sobered up. But alas! It was too late. Mu Feng looked at the largest guy's stretching hand and said, "Hugo? I already called the A-team." Hugo replied in a monotonous voice. He tried hard to control his anxiety. A team was Mu Feng's personal team. They were trained by world-famous martial artists. They were very mysterious. Those men shuddered in fear. They sat on the floor and started to beg for mercy. However, no one dared to come and to help them. No one had the courage to mess up with the king of the underworld's woman. Not even the drunken men. Those three really had death wish tonight. In few seconds, Mu Feng's special team came to take care of those drunken men. No one stopped them. People could only stare and tremble in fear. As soon as they left, to lighten the mood, Mu Feng ordered to give everyone free drinks. The people around them cheered as the bar again became a warm place. Mu Feng looked at the woman in his arms. His heart was full of tenderness. His left arm was in her waist. He slowly touched the girl's supple face with his trembling right hand. That's when the girl looked at his eyes. Mu Feng was startled by her rage. All of a sudden, she punched Mu Feng's handsome face. Tears almost came out of Mu Feng's eyes. His form was good, so he didn't fall down but moved away a little. The people in the dance floor could only see what happened. They thought that the girl must have some death wish too. However, to their surprise, Mu Feng didn't do anything to her, neither his eyes turned cold. He tried to get closer to her and this time she threw a kick aiming his leg. Mu Feng caught her leg in time and pulled her leg towards him. Getting off guard, Xiang was slammed against Mu Feng's firm chest. She wanted to move away but he didn't budge at all. When she realized that she couldn't get away from him, she found a new tactic. Xiang began to punch and scratch his body wherever she could. Mu Feng endured her torture and controlled his desire to kiss her right there and then. He swiftly put her on his left shoulder and walked out of the bar. The people in the bar were just stupefied. They only could watch the scene like it was a TV show. One of the bartenders kept pouring wine on the glass. He didn't realize that the glass was already over brimming with the wine and it spread on the table. Mu Feng put Xiang inside the car and he also went inside. He turned on the auto-driving mode. Just then Xiang gave him another scratch in the left arm. He checked if she broke one or two nails. When he saw that she didn't, he sighed in relief. "You jerk! How could you leave me alone for all these years? Do you know how guilty I was? Do you have any idea how I lived all these days? Do you know that every night I have nightmares and when I wake up and search for you, then I realize that you are not by my side? Do you know how does it feel?" Xiang screamed as she kicked and punched the culprit. Her eyes were full of rage. Mu Feng let her punch himself. When she said those words with fury, he felt like someone stabbed his heart multiple times. His whole body trembled as he tried to imagine her pain. "You did not feel anything. All of your love for me was just acting. You forgot me and found some new women to play with. So what if you don't touch them? Weren't you like that 4 years ago when you dated me? Now one woman is not enough for you. You need more than 2 women to satisfy you. You are a jerk. You are disgusting. I hate you. I hate you." Tears started to fall from her beautiful green eyes. Mu Feng could never see her cry. He hugged her tightly in his chest and kept rubbing her back and head. He closed his eyes and murmured in soft voice, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I'm to blame. I am a bad guy. I am the worst lover. I am jerk. I am disgusting. But from now on, I won't hurt you anymore. I'll be by your side from now on. I will never leave you." I'll stay together with you till the end. You will find me whenever you want. When you will have nightmares, I will hug you tightly in my arms. I will sing song for you every night. I'm here now. Don't worry anymore. Mu Feng didn't realize when his tears started to fall. When they reached the Mu mansion, butler Leo came to the entrance. Welcome home, SA. Once again, he lost his voice. Mu Feng was carrying half-asleep Chiang. His shirt was torn apart. There were scratch marks on his face. His hair was messy. He looked like he just came from hell. Mu Feng had a seriousness written on his face. He passed the butler as he carried her and said, "Don't come to the third floor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 127. Chapter 127, Take Responsibility. Mu Feng took Chiang straight to his bedroom. He put her down on the bed, poured a glass of water and then gave it to her. Chiang drank the whole glass of water and after that, she gave a glance at Mu Feng. Seeing her glare, Mu Feng sighed and said, "Go to sleep. I'll sleep in the sofa, so you don't have to worry." Mu Feng took the glass from her hand and got up. Before he could go any further, Chiang spoke up, "Yang Ji and father plan to get me married." Hearing that, Mu Feng stopped on the track. Chiang continued, "I heard the family is in Chinese military from old generation." She looked at Mu Feng, "You know what I mean, right?" Mu Feng's body stiffed. He put down the glass on the table and walked to Chiang. He sat beside her on the bed and asked as he clasped his fingers together, "What do you plan to do?" Chiang gave a small laugh before saying, "I'm planning on agreeing to the proposal." Mu Feng looked at Chiang. His tone was full of anxiety as he asked, "If you know the situation from 4 years ago, why will you foolishly try to do that?" Chiang glanced at him with her moist eyes. Her eyes were full of affection. She replied, "4 years ago, didn't you protect me by letting me go? You didn't even ask for my consent. 4 years later, let me let go of you. This way everyone will be safe." Mu Feng's whole body started to shake. He clenched his both hands and asked, "So you plan to sacrifice yourself to protect me?" Chiang smiled sadly. She asked him back, "Why? Don't you think it's a good idea?" Mu Feng grabbed both of her sides and asked, "Do you think I'll let another man touch your body?" Chiang thought that she heard a joke. She laughed and asked him further, "Well, isn't that why you broke up with me?" Mu Feng halted. He couldn't talk back. Seeing his facial expression, Ying's eyes suddenly became red. She gave him a hard slap on his left cheek. The sound of the slap echoed in the room. Mu Feng felt a sharp pain in his cheek. But neither did he touch his cheek nor did he make a sound. He knew that he deserved it. Ying started to punch his chest. She was crying and said while choking, "Why did you come into my life? Why did you have to make my life so miserable? Now you keep looking what happens next. Just see me get married off with another man. Just let the man who tried to torture me to death taste my body. Just watch me carry the children of the man who made our life upside down. Just see." Her painful words were cut off by Mu Feng's sudden kiss. Ying tried to move back, but he caught her hands in left hand and touched her back of the head with his right hand. Mu Feng's kiss was passionate. As soon as he captured her pink lips, those attractive lips were like honey. They melted as they were touched by Mu Feng's warm lips. He didn't taste them for 4 years. The passion he had buried deep inside of his heart started to burn. He kept kissing, nibbled and licking her lips, giving her no choice to surrender her body to him. Ying was inexperienced with this sort of passion. In the past, they only kissed each other twice. The first kiss was even an accident. The second kiss was a light kiss. So she never got the chance to verify Mu Feng's desire for her. She didn't know it was that deep. Shi Ying's whole body trembled as she started to feel hot. Her breaths became irregular. Her heart beat crazily. Her eyes became teary and mind went fuzzy. After tasting her lips, Mu Feng invaded her mouth. His tongue twisted hers as they played inside. Shi Ying got startled as her mouth was filled with his tongue. His warm, moist, intense tongue kept playing with hers till they got numb. She wanted to move away. Mu Feng also pushed her. As a result, they fell on the soft bed. When Shi Ying was under Mu Feng, he let go of her mouth. Both breathed heavily. The air was hot. Their faces were red. Mu Feng caressed her face with full of love. He said, "Ying, I'll never let you go like before. I promise to be with you for the rest of my life. Please, Ying, be mine again." His proposal was more like a plea of a lover who was about to die. Shi Ying's eyes again filled with tears. She reached her hands and cupped his face. "Feng, don't abandon me in future." A drop of tear fell to Shi Ying's cheek from Mu Feng's right eye. He nodded as he tried to smile. "I promise, I won't. Let's be together." Sensually, he kissed her whole face and wiped all her tears with his moist lips. When he was about to get off, Shi Ying circled her arms around his neck and whispered, "Don't go, Feng. I've waited long enough." Mu Feng's one and only goddess was desiring for him when she was beneath him. His eyes were in flames. He asked in a husky tone, "Are you sure? If I start once, I won't be able to stop." Shi Ying pulled his face and kissed on his lips deeply. "After that," she said, "don't stop then." Mu Feng didn't hesitate any longer as he kissed her hungrily. This time, he was fierce. Shi Ying's mind and body were in his control. Slowly his mouth went further down. Shi Ying cried out in passion. Her head was too fuzzy. A hidden warmth from her heart spread to her whole body. She squirmed her body under him. When Mu Feng looked at her, touching her face, he whispered, "Are you afraid? Should I stop?" Then she realized that she was completely naked just as Mu Feng. She had no idea when that happened. Blood rushed in her face as she said in embarrassment, "Don't look." She tried to hide herself but Mu Feng caught her hands. He said in a playful tone, "What are you saying? Let me take a closer look." He started to observe her body thoroughly. The light was on. Mu Feng could see her everything. Shi Ying cried out in shame, "Feng, you bully." Mu Feng laughed heartily. He asked, "Isn't that your fault to fall for me and seduce me?" Shi Ying's eyes were red. She rebuked, "Who said I love you? I hate you." Mu Feng's eyes narrowed. He said in a deep husky voice, "Really? Let's ask your body." He spread her legs and put his mouth in a certain area. Don't, Feng, ah." Shi Ying screamed as she felt the pleasure. Her body was shuddering tremendously. Subconsciously, she grabbed his head. When she was almost in her climax, Mu Feng entered her. He kissed her lips and face while asking, "Does it hurt? Should I stop?" Shi Ying's eyes were closed. Tears were falling from her eyes. She shook her head and said, "No. I can handle it." Mu Feng started to move. He gritted his teeth as he said, "You are so tight. Take some deep breaths. Relax your body. If it hurts much, bite my shoulder." Shi Ying opened her mouth and breathed in and out. Slowly her body began to relax and Mu Feng started to move again. Their hands were intertwined. Shi Ying scratched his back and tried to bite her lips. Understanding her intention, Mu Feng kissed her lips deeply. He didn't want her to bleed her own lips. The room filled up with moans and groans as well as their passionate frictions. The windows of the room became foggy. Their love-making kept going till they reached their climax. Mu Feng kissed Shi Ying's sweaty forehead and wanted to pull himself out of her body. However, before he could do that, Xiang grabbed his hand and said, "Don't. Let's stay like that." Hearing such yearning from his adorable wife, Mu Feng had a reaction. Xi Ying's tired eyes flew open. Her face was again turning red. She stuttered, again?" Mu Feng smiled playfully. He said, "It's because my wife seduced me. Take responsibility." He kissed her deeply and made her mind go blank. As they went for one after another round, the night was too shy to stay any longer. The sun began to pop up in the east. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 128. Chapter 128, Interesting Night. /n, I assume everyone forgot Yin Su and Shui Lin. XD.